Chapter 1983 Clues of the Jade Talisman. Chapter 1983 Clues of the Jade Talisman. Every single step the Iron Tower man took left a deep footprint on the ground. In the blink of an eye, 3 of the experts of the 4 immortal sects retreated. At the same time, the blue-dressed woman's killing move descended. Su Zimo did not turn back at all. As though he had eyes behind him, he closed 2 fingers and conjured a sword art, waving it behind him. Chi! After condensing the heaven-slaying sword art, at least 100 swords she spewed out at the same time and formed a sword. Sensing the terror of the sword, the blue-dressed woman's expression changed starkly as she stopped in her tracks and retreated. She wanted to stop, but she was still a step too late. Clang! 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 The sound of metal clashing echoed as the blue-dressed woman's 10 fingernails were snapped by the heaven-slaying sword Chi. Pieces of fingernails scattered on the ground with a purplish-green poisonous glow. Against the encirclement of the experts of the 4 immortal sects, Su Zimo counterattacked domineeringly and forced all 4 of them back. On the other side, Tang Zi, who was already fighting Fang Xian, was temporarily relieved. Ha ha! Su Zimo burst into laughter and looked down at the 4 of them. Not bad. You guys are quite capable to be able to escape from my hands unscathed. How arrogant! The middle-aged Taoist's expression darkened as he hollered. However, the other 3 remained silent with ugly expressions. Su Zimo's words were indeed extremely piercing and arrogant. However, the 3 of them knew that Su Zimo was not lying at all. The moment the bald monk collided with the great chaos essence palm, he sensed that something was amiss and retreated in time so he was not injured. If he had retreated slightly slower, both his arms might have been ground into a pulp by the great chaos essence palm. The reason why the Iron Tower man was able to withstand Su Zimo's punch was because he had made use of a secret skill to redirect his opponent's attack into the ground through his body. That was the reason why his 3 steps left such deep footprints on the ground. It was even more dangerous for the blue-dressed woman. She specialized in the Tao of poison, and the power of her body and bloodline was far inferior to the bald monk and the Iron Tower man, let alone Su Zimo. If she had dodged slower earlier on, both her arms would have been severed by the heaven-slaying sword Chi. The 4 of them came from the 4 immortal sects and had the lowest status in the sect. However, cultivators who could enter the immortal sects should be far superior to their peers even if they were the most inferior servants. To think that the 4 of them would encounter such a ruthless person in the Emperor's tomb. On the other side, Yunting, who was watching the battle, had a conflicted expression. Earlier on, he merely said that he could resolve the encirclement of the 4 of them. To think that not only did Su Zimo resolve it, he even counterattacked forcefully and nearly injured the experts of the 4 immortal sects. On the other side, Tang Zi and Fang Xian fought continuously and it was difficult to determine the victor. Although Tang Zi cultivated the Tao of assassination, her physique and bloodline were extraordinary and her foundation was extremely firm. Even if she were to fight against paragons and monster incarnates head-on, she would not be disadvantaged at all. The more Fang Xian fought, the more alarmed he became. He ascended after the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation and was invincible in the lower worlds. Even in the upper world, he had not encountered any opponents. Initially, in his eyes, Yunting, Su Zimo and the experts of the 4 immortal sects might be the only ones who could threaten him. He did not take Tang Zi seriously at all. To think that this seemingly ordinary woman would be so troublesome and terrifying. Her attacks were unpredictable and they were all killing moves. There were even a few times when he was almost severely injured. Where did this person come from? Fang Xian cursed internally. Right then, a jade-green light burst forth from the distant horizon and soared into the skies. However, it disappeared quickly. Many cultivators were shocked and fell into deep thought. Su Zimo saw the green light as well. Could it be the Jade Talisman? None of them had any clues about the Jade Talisman. The sudden appearance of the green light caused everyone to make guesses. After a brief silence, cultivators moved and sped in the direction of the Jade Talisman. Your Highness, what about us? A cultivator of the Zixian Immortal Kingdom asked softly. Let's take a look over there first. I'm bent on getting my hands on both the Jade Talisman and Heaven's Slaying Sword art. Yunting pondered for a moment with a deep gaze. Let's find the Jade Talisman first. We won't lose track of Suzimo. Pausing for a moment, he smiled. In my judgment, apart from me, no one in the Emperor's tomb can stop him. Your Highness, you seem to think highly of him? Someone behind Yunting could tell what he was implying. Yunting nodded slightly. This person is very talented and cultivated the Heaven's Slaying Sword art. We can be considered to be fated. However, he ascended from the lower worlds and it's difficult for him to stand out in the great Jin Immortal Kingdom. The only chance for him to make his mark in the Nine Firmament is if he follows me. The cultivator smiled. Your Highness, in the upper world, there's almost no one else who treats cultivators of the lower worlds equally like you. It's his fortune if he can be recruited by you. Yunting shook his head and smiled. Not necessarily. Anyone with such talent and combat strength is a monster incarnate. They're prideful and difficult to recruit. I have to defeat him and convince him before I can take him under my wing. With that said, Yunting glanced at Suzimo again and led the many cultivators of the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom in the direction of the green light. Fang Xian, let's ignore that woman and look for the Jade Talisman first. We can't let anyone seize the initiative. The voice of Old Man Gu sounded in Fang Xian's mind. Bang! On the battlefield, Fang Xian clashed head-on with Tang Zi and retreated. Waving the lightning on his fist, he sneered. I'm not playing with you anymore. We'll fight again next time. You'll die the next time, Tang Zi said indifferently. Ha ha! Fang Xian burst into laughter. You want to kill me? You're far from that. The moment he said that, Fang Xian turned and sped back to Old Man Ji's side and left with everyone from the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom. The experts of the four immortal sects who were initially confronting Su Zimo wanted to retreat as well. The mission given to them by the sect was to search for the Jade Talisman, not the seven glow immortal ginseng. If they continued to fight with Su Zimo here and lost sight of the big picture because of this, they would be punished when they returned even if they could get their hands on the seven glow immortal ginseng. At that thought, the experts of the four immortal sects exchanged glances and retreated at the same time, leaving with the other cultivators of the sect. Tang Zi came to Su Zimo's side. There were more than 100 people from the great Jin Immortal Kingdom who entered the Emperor's tomb, and they were the only ones left. Seems like everyone has the same goal, the Jade Talisman, Su Zimo murmured softly. Tang Zi nodded in silent agreement. Su Zimo frowned in deep thought. I wonder what's the origin and secret of this Jade Talisman to alarm so many sects and factions. In the eyes of these sects and factions, it's even more important than the seven glow immortal ginseng, Tang Zi said. I guess only someone of Yunting's status can know such a secret. Let's go take a look too, Su Zimo said in a deep voice. Even without the arrangements of Prince Yuanzhua, he wanted to see what the Jade Talisman looked like and what secrets it hid. Tang Zi did not say anything and merely followed behind Su Zimo silently. Chapter 1984 Ruined Palace. Chapter 1984 Ruined Palace. Su Zimo and Tang Zi sped along the tracks of many cultivators. After walking for about half a day, they caught sight of a massive building at the horizon ahead. It looked like a palace. Although it was dilapidated, one could still sense its grandeur from afar. There were even some cultivators lingering around the palace, as though they were searching for something. Most of the cultivators had already entered the hall. Su Zimo and Tang Zi arrived before the palace and took a rough look but could not make out anything. The two of them did not waste time outside and entered the palace. In front of them was a spacious square paved with green stones. There were a few stone paths that separated the medicinal fields. However, there were no longer any immortal herbs in the medicinal fields, only some withered leaves. Even the soil in the medicinal fields was corroded by the curse of the Emperor's tomb, and shone with a strange green color. The square was huge, and even with Su Zimo's eyesight, he could not see the borders. The two of them passed through the medicinal fields along the stone paths and continued forward. Along the way, they encountered some cultivators walking around the square. This palace was probably one of the temporary residences of the Immortal Emperor back then. I wonder if there are any treasures? There are definitely treasures. Unfortunately, they were corroded by the curse here for countless years and are now crippled. I heard that the side halls on the left and right contain some rare treasures, elixirs, divine weapons and dermic treasures. Unfortunately, none of them can be used. If that wasn't the case, even every single blade of grass in this palace would be an incredible treasure. Since we can't enter the main hall for the time being, let's continue searching. If we're lucky and find any treasures, we'll make a killing. Su Zimo's ears twitched, and he caught faint whispers around the square. The cultivators outside the palace were probably trying their luck searching for treasures as well. However, he did not know why those people said that they could not enter the main hall for the time being. The two of them continued forward, and before long, they crossed the entire square. At the end of the square stood the main hall of the palace. Thousands of cultivators were gathered in front of the hall, staring at the door of the main hall. Some of them were even discussing softly. The two of them went forward to take a look and saw that the ground at the entrance of the hall was etched with dense and complicated patterns that shone faintly. "It's a formation," Tang Zi whispered. Su Zimo nodded and stared at the formation in front of the main hall for a while, feeling dizzy. The formation was way too complicated, and he could not dispel it given his attainments in formations. However, at that moment, a young man stood at the edge of the formation in front of the main hall. The person had a confident expression and was in high spirits. From time to time, he would stop and ponder or speed up and flick his finger, sending Essence G spirit lights into the formation. This was the young prince of the Xian Immortal Kingdom, Yunting. Each time Yunting made a move, the formation would tremble slightly and shine. Furthermore, the light of the formation was clearly dimming. Yunting was dispelling the formation. At this rate, it was only a matter of time before the formation was dispelled. Su Zimo could sense that Yunting was very strong. In fact, he could even sense a hint of danger from that person. To be able to cultivate to the level 9 Black Essence realm at more than 200 years old, even if this person had a noble status and unlimited resources, his talent was truly terrifying. What was even more frightening was that this person's attainments in array formations were so deep as well. There was a limit to one's strength. Even if one cultivated wholeheartedly for more than 200 years, he might not be able to reach the level 9 Black Essence realm. However, this person could even divert attention to cultivate array formations. Why do we have to enter through the main entrance of the main hall? Are there no other entrances? The main hall is dilapidated and on the verge of collapse. I'm afraid it won't even be able to withstand a single punch from me. A cultivator in the crowd muttered. Fufu. Immediately, a scoff sounded from the side. You can try going up. The main hall is surrounded by restrictions and you'll definitely die if you barge in. Do you see those corpses? That is what will happen. The first person was stunned and did not dare to say anything more. Dispelling formations takes a huge toll on one's essence spirit. This prince sure is bold. He's not afraid of running out of energy and encountering danger. What status is he of? Almost everyone in the Emperor's tomb is of a lowly status. Who would dare to lay a hand on him? Furthermore, even if his essence spirit takes a huge toll, he's probably still invincible among his peers. In the crowd, Fang Xian watched everything coldly and smirked. That person is young after all and is way too conceited. He doesn't know how to hold back. Su Zimo watched for a while before exiting the crowd. Where are you going? Tang Zi asked. Su Zimo said, It'll be difficult to dispel this formation within a short period of time. I intend to explore the side halls on both sides. I'm not going. Tang Zi did not move. She still wanted to rush into the main hall right away and seize the initiative when the formation was dispelled. Su Zimo nodded and turned towards a side hall. There were no restrictions in the side hall. The door was open and it was a mess inside. It was clear that many cultivators had overturned it. Initially, there were many divine weapons and dermic treasures placed in the side hall. There were sabers, spears, swords, halberds, bells, cauldrons, mirrors, ordinary weapons and dermic treasures of different races, everything was present. However, at that moment, most of the divine weapons and dermic treasures were already strewn everywhere. To be precise, those were no longer divine weapons or dermic treasures. Under the corrosion of the curse of the Emperor's tomb, the original divine weapons and dermic treasures had long turned into scrap metal. In fact, the grades of those divine weapons and dermic treasures were not too high. At the very least, they were not at the level of sentient dermic treasures. That was because there was no feedback from the hell suppression tripod that was still refining the molten metal within. There were still some cultivators lingering in the side hall, wanting to search for some treasures that were missed. In fact, a few cultivators even fought because of a broken sword. After searching carefully and finding nothing, Suzimo walked towards the side hall opposite. The side hall earlier on contained divine weapons and dermic treasures, while this side hall originally contained many elixirs. The medicine cabinet in the side hall was already strewn on the ground with bottles and jars scattered on it. Many bottles were uncorked, and the elixirs inside rolled out. Suzimo picked up a random elixir and twisted it gently with his finger, turning it into ashes. After countless years, the medicinal effects and spirit chi within had long dissipated. Even if there were intact elixirs, they would be tainted by the curse of the Emperor's tomb. Consuming them would be no different from committing suicide. Suzimo circled the side hall and was prepared to leave after discovering nothing. Just as he passed by a dilapidated ruin, the hell suppression tripod stirred. Chapter 1985 Bronze Lantern. Chapter 1985 Bronze Lantern. Suzimo stopped in his tracks and frowned slightly. This side hall was filled with elixirs. Why would the hell suppression tripod have such a reaction? The hell suppression tripod had always only devoured and refined spirit treasures and had never been interested in any elixirs. Furthermore, the elixirs here were tainted by the curse and had long lost their medicinal effects without any value. However, the commotion in his consciousness was extremely obvious and could not be an illusion. To be precise, the commotion was even greater than the hell suppression tripod encountering a spirit treasure. Suzimo searched carefully under the ruins. Beneath his feet was a dusty ruin with a pile of useless items buried. All sorts of elixirs were mixed in the mud, and it was almost impossible to tell them apart. Suzimo bent down and searched carefully. Although the area was not big, there was a lot of debris. There was a shattered stone table, dilapidated counter, abandoned bronze lamp, and many broken porcelain jars. After checking for a long time, Suzimo did not find anything worthy of the hell suppression tripod's attention. He pondered for a moment, and his gaze shifted to the ancient bronze lantern from before. The bronze lantern had a simple design and was extremely common. There was nothing exquisite about it, and it was mostly buried in the mud. It should be an ordinary illumination object that was originally embedded in the walls of this side hall. Furthermore, the exposed part of the bronze lantern was covered in a layer of green spots. It was clearly corroded by the curse of the Emperor's tomb. Therefore, when Suzimo first saw the bronze lantern, he did not take it to heart and swept his gaze across it. At that moment, he arrived before the bronze lantern and bent down, wanting to pull it out of the mud. The moment his finger made contact with the bronze lantern, he shuddered and his consciousness blurred. Suddenly, a powerful and strange suction force burst forth from the bronze lantern. Suzimo felt that the essence spirit in his consciousness was about to leave his body and enter the bronze lantern. Sensing danger, the creation lotus platform shone brightly and green rays of light burst forth from the 81 lotus holes, turning into thin threads that wrapped around Suzimo's essence spirit and pinned it on the lotus platform. Even so, the suction force was extremely strong. Pang! 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 After a momentary stalemate, the green threads on Suzimo's essence spirit snapped. Even the creation lotus platform could not defend against that power. Suddenly, a loud Sanskrit sound echoed in Suzimo's consciousness, and the phantoms of Buddhas appeared, chanting Buddhist sutras loudly. The contents were from the Prajna-Nirvana Sutra. Sanskrit words appeared one after another around Suzimo's essence spirit. They shone with a golden light and were dignified, mysterious, and formed a barrier of Sanskrit. It was strange. After the phantoms of the Buddhas appeared and the Buddhist sutras sounded, the strange suction force gradually weakened and the attack was not as strong as before. However, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra was incomplete. After chanting for a while, the voices of the Buddhas stopped and the golden Sanskrit words around them faded rapidly. The suction force from the bronze lantern increased once more. Su Zimo's consciousness had already recovered a momentary clarity. He retracted his palm hurriedly and took half a step back with a shocked expression. What was that ancient bronze lantern that almost devoured his essence spirit? Even the creation lotus platform could not protect him. If not for the fact that he had cultivated half of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra and attracted the phantoms of Buddhas to appear and chant sutras, he might have died for no reason. This thing could not even be touched. It was truly strange. Waving his sleeves, Su Zimo wiped away the mud around the bronze lantern and gradually revealed its true appearance. Su Zimo focused his gaze and frowned slightly as he looked at the lower half of the bronze lantern that was buried in the mud. The exposed part of the bronze lantern was filled with green spots. However, the buried part was a dark yellow color without any green spots. Everything in the Emperor's tomb was corroded by the curse, and the soil beneath his feet was not spared either. Logically speaking, even if the ancient bronze lantern was buried in the soil, it should have been corroded by the curse of the Emperor's tomb. However, the situation of the bronze lantern was rather strange. Su Zimo stared at the green spots on the bronze lantern for a while and gradually noticed something unusual. If he was not wrong, the green spots on the bronze should not be caused by the curse of the Emperor's tomb, but by rust. In other words, the bronze lantern had not been corroded by the curse after countless years in the Emperor's tomb. In the Emperor's tomb, even sentient dermic treasures could not defend against the corrosion of the curse. Up till now, only Su Zimo's hell suppression tripod would not be tainted by the curse. In other words, this bronze lantern was definitely better than a sentient dermic treasure. There was a high chance that it was a 9 tribulations pure yang spirit treasure or grotto heaven spirit treasure. At that thought, Su Zimo was secretly delighted. If that was truly the case, the fourth wall of the hell suppression tripod could be repaired after devouring and refining the bronze lantern. Su Zimo looked around, and when he saw that there was no one else in the side hall, he took out the hell suppression tripod. The hell suppression tripod was in his consciousness, and he did not dare to throw the bronze lantern into his consciousness. In fact, he did not even dare to use his spirit consciousness to move the ancient bronze lantern, afraid that the dangerous situation from before would repeat itself. Carefully, Su Zimo channeled the Prajna Nirvana Sutra and covered his sleeves with a faint layer of golden Buddhist light. Thereafter, he waved his sleeves and swept up the bronze lantern on the ground, tossing it into the hell suppression tripod. With a thud, the ancient bronze lantern fell into the steaming molten iron within the tripod and vanished. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and was about to put away the hell suppression tripod when he heard a splash. The molten metal in the tripod surged and the ancient bronze lantern floated once more. Immediately after, the hell suppression tripod swayed continuously and molten iron rippled, tossing the bronze lantern out of the tripod and onto the ground. Su Zimo was stunned and dumbfounded. The hell suppression tripod had spat out the bronze lantern? The bronze lantern spun in the hell suppression tripod and underwent a baptism. However, it was still intact and seemed to have turned even more mysterious. The green spots on the bronze lantern had already been washed away by the molten metal in the tripod and returned to its original bronze color. Even the hell suppression tripod can't devour this thing? Su Zimo stared at the bronze lantern with a pensive gaze. This bronze lantern might be even more precious than he had imagined. After washing away the bronze green color, he saw a word vaguely etched on the lantern at the top. Su Zimo walked closer and took a closer look before murmuring softly, "Soul." There was a soul character in the lantern. Furthermore, it was written in Sanskrit, so Su Zimo could not recognize it right away. Pondering for a moment, Su Zimo took out a new storage bag and channeled the Prajna Nirvana Sutra as per his previous method. He swept the bronze lantern into his storage bag with his sleeves and kept it alone. He did not know the origin and use of that thing yet. However, something that even the hell suppression tripod could not devour was definitely extraordinary. Right then, a commotion broke out from the direction of the main hall. The formation had been dispelled. Chapter 1986 Immortal Emperor's Remnant Consciousness. Chapter 1986 Immortal Emperor's Remnant Consciousness. In a flash, Suzimo sped towards the main hall. At the same time, cultivators from all over the palace noticed the commotion and surged towards the main hall. The crowd in front of the main hall was getting denser, and there were already more than 10,000 people. All of them were excited and rubbed their palms together. When Suzimo arrived, he saw Yunting standing at the front of the crowd with a deep gaze. Waving his hands continuously, his clothes fluttered in an extraordinary manner. In a short period of time, Yunting's fingertip emitted at least hundreds of spirit lights that entered the formation in front of the main hall instantly. The light of the formation suddenly burst forth in a bedazzling manner, engulfing Yunting instantly, and causing a series of exclamations. Many cultivators thought that Yunting had failed and was devoured by the formation. But soon, everyone realized that Yunting's figure was motionless against the illumination of the formation, and his aura became even sharper. "Open up!" Yunting hollered and pointed forward. Like a tide, the light of the formation was split into two from the middle and dissipated immediately. After a brief burst, all the light vanished. The formation at the entrance of the main hall was completely dispelled. As for Yunting, his face was only slightly pale and his aura did not weaken at all. He took out an elixir with a rich medicinal fragrance from his storage bag and swallowed it. Before long, his face turned rosy. With a boom, the door to the main hall collapsed heavily, causing dust to fly everywhere. When they saw that, many cultivators were invigorated and their gazes burned. After a momentary daze, they wanted to barge into the main hall to check things out. "Finally, someone is here!" Suddenly, a sigh sounded from the entire palace, as though it came from the distant past and was filled with the vicissitudes of time. Against that sigh, everyone in the palace seemed to be frozen on the spot. It was the same for Yunting, who was in midair, and Suzimo, who was in the crowd. That power had completely exceeded everyone's imagination. Who was this person? How long had he been here for him to say something like that? This person was not dead after lingering in the Emperor's tomb? This palace was one of my palaces back then. The Jade Talisman is in the main hall. After a moment of silence, the voice sounded once more. Could the owner of that voice be the Immortal Emperor of the past? The Immortal Emperor was not dead. Many cultivators were shocked at the thought of that. "Humph!" Yunting had a calm expression and said in a deep voice, "It's just a remnant consciousness left behind by this Immortal Emperor in the formation. Once the formation is dispelled, the remnant consciousness will be released. It's not a brilliant method. It's rare for anyone among you to be able to dispel the formation I left behind. However, I wonder who will be able to obtain the Jade Talisman in the main hall." After saying a few words, the voice turned weak. It was as though the remnant consciousness did not have much power left after countless years. "Right, there's one more thing." The Immortal Emperor's voice sounded once more and became intermittent. "There's another treasure hidden in this palace that's much better than the Jade Talisman. I wonder who the fated person will be." Before he could finish, his voice vanished, and so did the invisible power that bound the cultivators. "It's indeed the remnant consciousness of the Immortal Emperor. I didn't hear what he said at the end. It seems like there's another treasure in this palace that's even more precious than the Jade Talisman." After the Immortal Emperor's remnant consciousness disappeared, the crowd exploded into discussions. At that moment, although Suzimo was expressionless, his heart was beating wildly. There was a high chance that the treasure mentioned by the Immortal Emperor was the bronze lantern with the word soul etched on it. To be fair, the bronze lantern was truly difficult to notice. It was not in the side hall where the divine weapons and dermic treasures were stored. Instead, it was in the side hall where the elixirs were stored. Furthermore, It was just an ordinary illumination object that was embedded on the walls and filled with rust. Even if anyone noticed it, they would not take a second look. If not for the strange activity of the hell suppression tripod previously, Zimo would not have noticed the bronze lantern even if he searched the side hall a few more times. Of course, that was only Zimo's guess. The treasure that the Immortal Emperor mentioned might not be the bronze lantern. The first thing that caught the attention of many cultivators was the unknown treasure mentioned by the Immortal Emperor. However, everyone reacted quickly. Nobody knew what treasure the Immortal Emperor was referring to, and it was a probability. However, the Jade Talisman was right in the main hall before them. Given the current situation, obtaining the Jade Talisman was more important. After a momentary silence, Yunting was the first to enter the main hall. Immediately after, many cultivators swarmed in and squeezed one another. Some of the cultivators were even pushed against the walls around the main hall, triggering the restrictions and dying on the spot. The stench of blood had already spread before the Jade Talisman was even seen. Summoning ethereal wings, Zimo flew above everyone's heads and entered the hall, looking over. The hall was dark with dust floating around. However, it was extremely spacious and it did not feel crowded at all for 10,000 cultivators to barge in. A palm-sized Jade Talisman hovered in midair at the front of the hall. It shone with a beautiful glow, and the surrounding void was dyed red. Everyone caught sight of the Jade Talisman right away, but no one dared to act rashly. There were more than 10,000 Grade 9 Black Immortals here, and anyone who dared to advance would become a public enemy. Even the brash Fang Xian retracted his sharpness after his short exchange with Tang Zi and Yun Ting and waited for an opportunity quietly. Zimo looked around and released his spirit consciousness, but he could not find any trace of Tang Zi. He knew that Tang Zi was definitely in the crowd. However, there were too many cultivators here and Tang Zi's concealment techniques were extremely brilliant. Even Zimo could not find her. Suddenly, Zimo felt a strong hostility and glanced over. On the other side were experts of the four immortal sects, the bald monk, Iron Tower Man, middle-aged Taoist, and the blue-dressed woman. The four of them could not suppress him even after joining forces earlier on. At that moment, they already viewed Zimo as their greatest opponent. Fufu. Right then, a chuckle sounded from the front of the crowd. Since no one dares to step forward, I won't stand on courtesy. There was a hint of mockery in Yun Ting's laughter as he looked down on everyone. Before leaving, he even turned around and looked at Zimo deeply with an indescribable expression. It was both a provocation and praise. Zimo frowned slightly. He did not know Yun Ting, nor did he have any interactions with the latter. He did not know why the latter suddenly noticed him. Yun Ting flew through the air and advanced slowly towards the Jade Talisman. Although he was proud, he did not dare to be careless. Who knew if there were any other dangers in this hall? Yun Ting had barely taken a few steps when a strange sound echoed in the hall. Chapter 1987 Bean Soldiers. Chapter 1987 Bean Soldiers. The sound was like countless pearls falling onto a jade plate, tinkling. If it was anywhere else, the sound would be crisp and pleasant. However, it was a little terrifying in the abandoned hall of the Emperor's tomb. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw that cobblestone-sized beans were rolling down the stone steps in front of the hall with yellow mist surging within. At a glance, the beans were densely packed and there were at least thousands of them rolling down the stone steps. What's this? There seems to be a ghost circling around these beans. Everyone was on guard. In midair, Yun Ting frowned slightly and his eyes flickered in deep thought. As the prince of an immortal kingdom, he possessed the bloodline of the royal family. Although he was young, he was experienced and knowledgeable. Could it be? Yun Ting murmured softly. Piak! Piak! Before the beans could roll in front of the cultivators, they shattered. Immediately after, yellow fog surged from the beans and transformed into sinister figures in front of everyone. Some of them wore tattered robes and had skinny faces, wielding horsetails whips. Some of them lost an arm and walked over unsteadily with a saber in one hand. Although half of their faces were gone, they were still murderous. All of those figures had one thing in common: the holes in their eyes were bloodshot and emitted a strange red glow with a menacing aura. It's otherworldly soldiers! They're otherworldly soldiers! No wonder we didn't see any otherworldly soldiers blocking the way. To think that they were all trapped within this hall. Why are these otherworldly soldiers coming out of the beams? Cries of surprises came from the crowd. Thousands of otherworldly soldiers appeared in the hall and blocked everyone's path with a rumbling malevolent aura. It was truly shocking. Fufu. In midair, Yun Ting's expression was calm, as though he had already guessed the scene before him. He chuckled. To think that I would be able to witness this divine power of turning beings into soldiers in this palace. That statement caused an uproar. Turning beings into soldiers was a supreme divine power. The cultivation realms of the cultivators present were not high, and most of them were from the lower worlds. They had never seen it before. At most, they would only hear some legends. Some exalted immortals could summon heavenly soldiers with a handful of beings in the blink of an eye and form a mighty army that was invincible. Now that many cultivators witnessed it personally, they truly realized that the soldiers that were summoned were not heavenly soldiers, but otherworldly soldiers. Kill! 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 Thousands of otherworldly soldiers roared and charged towards the cultivators with bloodshot eyes. Yun Ting was fearless as he chuckled. This must be your final test, right? Those evil things can stop others, but not me. I will definitely get my hands on the Jade Talisman. The moment he said that, Yun Ting charged towards the otherworldly soldiers at the front. Before both parties made contact, Yun Ting closed two fingers and waved forward gently. Xing! A blazing light burst forth from Yun Ting's sword finger. It was extremely sharp and tore a huge hole in the otherworldly soldiers. The otherworldly soldiers at the front were sliced into two from the middle by the sword beam. That sword chi was even sharper than a true sword's edge. Yun Ting moved and entered alone. Your Highness, watch out! Many cultivators of the Xian Immortal Kingdom shouted and charged forward. However, there was an endless stream of otherworldly soldiers and Yun Ting's figure was drowned before long. The hole was repaired and Yun Ting was isolated from the other cultivators. The cultivators standing at the outer perimeter could only see sword chi surging within the otherworldly soldiers. Everywhere it passed, people were overturned and broken limbs flew everywhere. Old Man Ge of the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom and Fang Xian led everyone behind them and charged forward. The cultivators of the four immortal sects swarmed forward as well. The other cultivators moved one after another and charged towards the otherworldly soldiers. The first person to break through the obstruction of the otherworldly soldiers would gain the initiative and have the best chance of obtaining the Jade Talisman. Although the otherworldly soldiers had torrential malevolent auras, their cultivation realms were limited and almost all of them were black immortals. In fact, there were even many low-level black immortals who were not much of a threat to everyone. Furthermore, these otherworldly soldiers had obvious flaws. Without an essence spirit, one could not use any divine powers or secret skills. What they relied on was their battered bodies. Su Zimo did not attack right away. Instead, he chose to watch coldly from the sidelines. It would be way too simple if the final test left behind by the Immortal Emperor was truly to turn beings into soldiers. Su Zimo's ears twitched, and he caught a faint sound amidst the chaotic shouts in the hall. It was the sound of beings bouncing. Frowning slightly, Su Zimo leaped up and looked down from above. At the end of the hall, there were still many sparkling beings jumping and rolling down the stone steps. Thereafter, they split apart and transformed into otherworldly soldiers. In fact, some of the beings even transformed into gigantic birds, beasts, and various strange living beings. Not only did the number of otherworldly soldiers not decrease after the charge, it was even increasing at a terrifying speed. There were endless beings at the end of the hall. If this continued, the number of otherworldly soldiers that would be born would not be tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands or even millions. What was even more frightening was that Su Zimo could clearly sense that the otherworldly soldiers that evolved later on were clearly stronger than before. Their bodies were more complete, and their auras were terrifying. He could already see Earth Essence Realm otherworldly soldiers evolving from the beings. At this rate, There might even be grade 6 or 9 Earth Immortal, or even Heaven Immortal level otherworldly soldiers later on. Even if the otherworldly soldiers did not have essence spirits, and could not release their divine powers and immortal arts, the strength of their bodies as Earth and Heaven Immortals was enough to kill everyone. It was impossible to kill all the otherworldly soldiers. Furthermore, they had to fight for the Jade Talisman against the endless otherworldly soldiers. There must be a way to dispel this. Since that senior immortal emperor left that treasure behind to await a fated person, there was no way he would sever all paths forward. Zimo narrowed his gaze and focused. At the end of the hall, the Jade Talisman hovered in midair and shone brightly. Light scattered and formed an empty space in the hall. Although the beings rolled down the stone steps, they circled around the area as though they were sentient. Zimo already had a plan. I have to break through the obstruction of the otherworldly soldiers as soon as possible and reach the area enveloped by the Jade Talisman. I must not get entangled with these otherworldly soldiers. At that thought, Zimo scanned the battlefield to search for Tang Zi. Although Tang Zi was good at concealment techniques, she could not hide her tracks against the dense otherworldly soldiers and was fighting on the battlefield, advancing slowly. There's an endless number of otherworldly soldiers here, and those at the back are getting stronger. Don't linger in battle and charge over as soon as possible. Traveling through the air is less of a hindrance. Zimo sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Chapter 1988 Threat. Chapter 1988 Threat. Tang Zi knew the Void Thunder Manual and might have some connection to the Thunder Emperor. The Thunder Emperor had been suppressed for hundreds of thousands of years. Tang Zi was young and naturally could not be the Thunder Emperor's successor. However, she could be the disciple of the Thunder Emperor's successor. It was because of this relationship that Zimo could not watch Tang Zi be trapped to death by the otherworldly soldiers. Tang Zi was extremely smart as well. After fighting against the otherworldly soldiers for a while, she felt that something was amiss. Just as she was hesitating whether to advance or retreat, Zimo's voice sounded. Without hesitation, she leaped into midair and sped forward. As an assassin, she had always been alone and had no friends since she was young. Her parents died early and she trusted no one other than her master. However, for some reason, she felt an indescribable sense of trust after knowing Zimo for a short period of time. It was like a sixth sense. This person would not harm her. Therefore, she did not hesitate at all after hearing Zimo's voice transmission. Indeed, the resistance in the air was much less significant. Furthermore, from her vantage point, Tang Zi noticed the terrifying scene at the end of the hall as well. Dense beams rolled down and transformed into figures with terrifying auras, with torrential malevolent auras. If she had continued to be entangled with the otherworldly soldiers below, it would be extremely difficult for her to leave the hall, let alone charge over. Charge to the area enveloped by the light of the Jade Talisman. Zimo's voice sounded once more. Tang Zi focused her gaze and saw that the area was indeed extremely strange. Be it the beings at the beginning or the otherworldly soldiers that were conjured, they seemed to be wary and avoided that area. Let's go! In that short period of time, Zimo arrived beside Tang Zi and extended his palm. Tang Zi knew that Zimo's movement technique was powerful, and he wanted to charge over with her. However, at that moment, Tang Zi felt a sense of fluster when she saw Zimo's outstretched palm. She lowered her head slightly and avoided his gaze instinctively. Before long, Tang Zi calmed down and raised her head expressionlessly. Given my capabilities, I can reach there myself. Yun Ting and the others have already noticed something unusual. Don't let them beat you to it. At that moment, Yun Ting, who was at the front of the otherworldly soldiers, arrived in midair as well. With a single glance, he discovered how terrifying the bean soldiers were. At the same time, Fang Xian of the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom, the few experts of the 4 immortal sects, and some paragons of the other sects and factions arrived in midair. All of them were peak experts of the Black Immortal Realm and noticed something amiss almost immediately when they encountered such danger. Black Immortals expended a lot of essence chi flying in the air, let alone fighting in midair. Therefore, most of the cultivators fought against the otherworldly soldiers on the ground. However, paragons and monster incarnates like Yunting did not have any reservations. They released their divine powers and flew through the air towards the Jade Talisman. Yunting seemed to have transformed into a sharp sword as he charged at the front at the fastest speed. Old Man Ge of the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom and Fang Xian lagged behind slightly. After that were the experts of the 4 immortal sections. Tang Zi reached out and pushed Su Zimo gently, urging, "Hurry and leave. Don't worry about me." She knew that Su Zimo would definitely slow down and fall behind if he carried her. At that time, even if the two of them could rush over, they might not get anything. Su Zimo pondered for a moment before nodding. "Be careful." The moment he said that, a pair of gigantic golden wings appeared behind Su Zimo. Beneath the golden wings was a pair of almost transparent and relatively small wings. The rock and ethereal wings burst forth at the same time. Swoosh! Su Zimo transformed into a golden streak of light and charged forward at lightning speed. Right then, Yunting and the others at the front encountered some trouble as well. Towards the end, the otherworldly soldiers that were conjured became increasingly terrifying and powerful. The initial otherworldly soldiers had almost no ability to fly. But now, there were already some otherworldly soldiers and ferocious birds blocking in midair with a murderous intent. Yunting and the others had no choice but to stop and fight against the otherworldly soldiers. Naturally, their speed slowed down. As for Su Zimo, he relied on the extreme speed divine power of the rock's wings, and even if there were otherworldly soldiers obstructing the way, he could pass through them rapidly. Most of the time, the otherworldly soldiers could not react in time and would only realize it later. The bald monk from one of the 4 immortal sects was swinging his golden fist and fighting against an otherworldly soldier. Suddenly, a sharp gust of wind sounded in his ears. Immediately after, he caught sight of a golden light flash past him from the corner of his eye. "What's that?" The bald monk was shocked. "It's Su Zimo from the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom." The middle-aged Taoist recognized it. Back then, he had a deep impression of Su Zimo crossing the lake with this movement technique. "He's surpassed me!" The Iron Tower man roared and charged forward, pushing away the otherworldly soldiers in his way as he chased after Su Zimo in huge strides. On the other side, Old Man Ge and Fang Xian fought the entire way and followed behind Yunting. Flying through the air was draining to begin with, let alone fighting. Old Man Ge was already in his twilight years. Although his essence spirit was strong, his spirit consciousness attacks were useless against the otherworldly soldiers. He was already exhausted from the battle and panted heavily. Initially, he could still follow closely behind Yunting when he joined forces with Fang Xian. But now, Old Man Ji's blood qi was weak and his combat strength was greatly reduced. Fang Xian even had to take care of him most of the time. Old Man Ge had become Fang Xian's burden. Old Man Ge turned back and saw that the others from the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom were completely surrounded by the otherworldly soldiers. At that moment, they no longer had the chance to retreat even if they wanted to. A series of tragic cries sounded from the battlefield, causing one's scalp to tingle. He witnessed a cultivator being torn into two by otherworldly soldiers. Old Man Ji's face turned paler. "Fang Xian, you can't abandon me!" As though he recalled something, Old Man Ge turned around hurriedly and threatened in a low voice. "I'm the only one who can take you out of the Emperor's tomb. If you dare to abandon me and snatch the Jade Talisman alone, I'll send a message back immediately. At that time, even if you manage to return alive, I'll make sure you die without a burial ground," Fang Xian said as he defended against the otherworldly soldiers. "Exalted Immortal, you're thinking too much. I am even hoping that you can put in a good word for me in front of your Highness. How can I be disloyal? It's good that you know." Old Man Ge harumphed. Right then, Fang Xian's expression changed as he noticed Su Zimo catching up behind them. "Exalted Immortal, we have to stop this person and not let him surpass us," Fang Xian hollered and charged forward right away. Chapter 1989 Killing with a Borrowed Knife. Chapter 1989 killing with a borrowed knife. There was nothing wrong with stopping Su Zimo. However, Old Man Ge felt that something was amiss. Only, the situation was dangerous and tense on the chaotic battlefield, and he did not have the energy to think about it carefully. Furthermore, Fang Xian had already charged forward first, and Old Man Ge could only follow. In midair, relying on the extreme speed divine power of the rock's wings, Su Zimo shuttled through the obstruction of many otherworldly soldiers without slowing down at all as he approached Yun Ting, who was at the front. Suddenly, a figure appeared from the side and threw a punch with an extremely ferocious aura. The surrounding air turned scorching hot from the friction of that punch. That punch did not have any additional movements. It was a simple straight punch, but it sealed all of Su Zimo's advancement paths. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as he ignored the punch. Instead of showing any signs of weakness, he charged forward viciously. Boom! The two collided with a deafening bang. Su Zimo's figure appeared and paused in midair. An expert. Furthermore, it was a top-tier expert. Right now, the Green Lotus true body had already grown to the peak of Grade 9, and could take on connate black-grade dermic treasures without using his blood chi. Apart from his shocking physique, the fact that he could be blocked after releasing the extreme speed divine power and ethereal wings required extremely sharp eyes. Even the paragons of the four immortal sects he had fought previously did not have such methods. Su Zimo glanced sideways and saw a black-robed man standing in midair not far away. It was the person who fought against Tang Zi previously. Fang Xian shuddered as well and took half a step back with a dark expression, placing a hand behind his back. As a monster incarnate of the lower worlds, he cultivated a mysterious cultivation technique, the divine elephant breathing technique, and was invincible. Every single time he attacked, he possessed the power of a divine elephant, and could destroy the world and crush stars. If this cultivation technique was cultivated to its limits, it could even obtain the power of thousands of divine elephants, and be invincible on land, suppressing all living beings. The fact that he could survive the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation and ascend with an indestructible body was proof of how strong he was. Even after ascending to the upper world, none of the cultivators of the same cultivation realm were his match in melee combat or physical combat, let alone in the lower worlds. During his clash with Su Zimo earlier on, neither of them used blood chi. It was a pure physical fight. However, he was disadvantaged. The palm behind his back trembled slightly and felt a sharp pain. He had to circulate his blood chi secretly to resolve the pain and heal the hidden injuries on his palm. Fang Xian thought for a moment, and realized that he might not be a match for Su Zimo even if he used his blood chi. Even if he could gain the upper hand with his bloodline phenomenon, it would be difficult for him to suppress Su Zimo within a short period of time. Furthermore, his bloodline phenomenon was one of his greatest trump cards, and he must not use it unless he had no other choice. His trump card was prepared for Yun Ting. At that thought, Fang Xian arrived beside Su Zimo in a flash. This person's physique is very strong. I'll fight him head-on while you attack from behind. On the other side, Old Man Ge had just arrived when he heard Fang Xian's voice transmission. Before he could think further, Fang Xian had already attacked. Boom! Boom! Fang Xian channeled his blood chi and the sound of a tsunami echoed from his body. Tsunami blood. Filled with blood chi, Fang Xian's body expanded rapidly and rose continuously. In the blink of an eye, he grew into a small giant that was 30 feet tall. Boom! 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 Fang Xian swayed his massive body and let out a loud bang with every step he took in midair. Filled with a savage aura, he charged over like a divine elephant. The charge of a divine elephant was the most terrifying. On land, no living being could stop him. Su Zimo looked at Fang Xian, who was charging over fearlessly with a burning gaze. His feet stomped on the ground and his knees pushed forward. His entire body was stretched like a sprinting horse. That was a killing move from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. Worried that his Green Lotus true body's bloodline would be exposed, Su Zimo did not use his blood chi. Even so, the aura of that move was not weak at all. Exalted Immortal, now's the time! Fang Xian sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness and growled. Without hesitation, Old Man Ge walked forward instinctively and conjured a dermic seal with both hands, smashing it towards Su Zimo's back. Just as Fang Xian and Su Zimo were about to collide, a sinister glint flashed through Fang Xian's eyes as he suddenly dispersed his blood qi and stopped in his tracks. Fang Xian's body withered rapidly like deflated skin and returned to normal. He did not choose to fight Su Zimo head-on. Instead, he suddenly stopped and retreated. Su Zimo was slightly stunned. Right then, Old Man Ge's attack descended. Su Zimo harumphed coldly. Without even thinking or turning back, his entire arm suddenly went limp like a divine elephant's trunk and flung backwards. The change was extremely sudden without any warning. Initially, Fang Xian and Old Man Ge were the ones who joined forces to stop Su Zimo. With Fang Xian's sudden retreat, Old Man Ge was the only one left facing Su Zimo. Old Man Ge wanted to dodge and retreat, but it was too late. His eyes widened as he looked at the departing Fang Xian. Initially, his eyes were filled with surprise, doubt, and confusion. In the end, everything was taken over by rage. You! Old Man Ge merely said a single word before the dermic seal he conjured with both hands was shattered by Su Zimo's arm. Immediately after, the arm whipped Old Man Ge's head and shattered it. His essence spirit was destroyed and he died on the spot. Although Old Man Ge's essence spirit was also at the Earth Essence realm, he did not have the chance to release an essence spirit secret skill. There were many cultivators present, but there were less than 2 who could withstand Su Zimo's move. Su Zimo frowned and quickly understood that he had been used as a weapon. However, that did not affect him much. It did not matter if he killed an exalted immortal of the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom. However, the sinister nature of Fang Xian made him wary. This person was troublesome to deal with. Thank you. Arriving beside Old Man Ge, Fang Xian removed his storage bag and put it away. He smiled sinisterly at Su Zimo and continued charging forward. As a monster incarnate of the lower worlds who had ascended through the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation, he was prideful and would not bow down to others so easily. Furthermore, Old Man Ge was only a servant of the prince. Deep in his bones, the old man had a condescending attitude and had never taken Fang Xian seriously. Although Fang Xian was respectful on the surface, he was already displeased internally. However, no matter how bold he was, unlike Su Zimo, he would not dare to kill an exalted immortal in front of everyone. That was the reason for the scene earlier on. To him, this old man was already a burden and was useless. Abandoning him, Fang Xian relaxed and chased after Yun Ting. Chapter 1990 Void Cruising Sword. Chapter 1990 Void Cruising Sword. From Fang Xian's scheming earlier on, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was a cunning old fox. Not only did he plot against Old Man Ge, he even made Su Zimo his weapon. While getting rid of his problem, he cleanly avoided any implication. Even if he returned to the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom, he would not be punished. After a slight delay, Su Zimo flapped his wings and continued speeding in the direction of the Jade Talisman. At that moment, more and more beings shattered and transformed into powerful living beings. Towards the end, almost all of them were Grade 9 Black Immortals or even Earth Immortal otherworldly soldiers. A massive sea beast floated over and opened its mouth, almost devouring the entire hall. Su Zimo did not dodge or avoid and transformed into a golden streak of light, charging over. Gulp! The sea beast devoured Su Zimo in huge mouthfuls. Su Zimo did not stop in his tracks. Instead, he charged even more ferociously, wanting to penetrate the massive body of the sea beast. At that moment, Yun Ting was far ahead of everyone else. Su Zimo did not have much time to waste on the sea beast. Poof! 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 A series of sounds came from the stomach of the sea beast. A golden light shot in from the head of the sea beast, penetrating its chest and organs. Towards the end of his charge, Suzumo's strength was also lacking. Thankfully, he was within the body of the sea beast and was hidden by its gigantic skeleton. Suzumo channeled his blood chi without worrying about being discovered and exposing the secret of the Green Lotus true body. Boom! Channeling his blood chi, Suzumo released an extremely terrifying power once more and passed through the sea beast like lightning. Suzumo overtook Fang Xian again and chased after Yunting, who was at the front. Fang Xian cursed internally. However, there was nothing he could do when he saw that. Under the divine power of turning beings into soldiers, the true paragons and monster incarnates among the cultivators had already stood out. At that moment, the paragons were roughly divided into groups. Right at the front was Prince Yunting of the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom. His body was strong and every single punch and kick carried an extremely sharp edge. There were almost no otherworldly soldiers that could stand in his way. Of course, as the otherworldly soldiers grew stronger, his speed slowed down as well. Second was Suzumo. Suzumo's method was even more violent and ferocious. He charged forward without decreasing his speed, and the distance between him and Yunting decreased. Third was Fang Xian and Tang Zi. Both of them had different methods and displayed different divine powers. Fang Xian's strength was tough and ferocious, while Tang Zi's movement technique was illusory and unpredictable. Fang Xian's position was slightly ahead while Tang Zi was slightly behind. The paragons of the four immortal sects were in the fourth group. Although the four of them were behind Suzumo, Yunting and the others, the difference was not that great. They were almost right on Tang Zi's heels. At the back were some of the best cultivators. There weren't many of them, only dozens of them. They were scattered and fought individually. Although those people were also in midair, it was already extremely fortunate if they could escape alive, let alone break through the obstruction of the otherworldly soldiers. The consumption of essence chi was already extremely terrifying just by flying in midair, let alone fighting against otherworldly soldiers in midair. Unless they were absolute top-tier monster incarnates, there was no way they could make it through. There were many cultivators who entered the Emperor's tomb, but only a few truly stood out. Some sharp cultivators had already begun to retreat, prepared to escape from the hall when they saw that the situation was bad. However, there were countless otherworldly soldiers and it was almost impossible for them to escape. Yunting was getting closer and closer to the Jade Talisman. He was less than 200 feet away. As long as he crossed those 200 feet, he would be able to reach the light of the Jade Talisman. That distance was merely a few breaths for him. The Jade Talisman was within reach. Finally, a smile curled on Yunting's lips. He turned around without stopping in his tracks. Glancing at Suzumo behind him, he raised a finger smugly and waved it gently in front of him. Suzumo was smart and understood what that action meant instantly. Yunting was saying, "I'm the number one, you can't beat me." Suzumo's expression was calm, and he maintained his speed. However, a mocking look flashed through his eyes. At the same time, Yunting suddenly heard a screeching sound, as though a sharp weapon was piercing over and arrived instantly. Yunting was alarmed. Before the attack truly descended, he felt a sharp pain on his back. This meant that the person who attacked was far stronger than him. Without hesitation, Yunting's figure swayed and suddenly turned blurry. His figure faded as though he had escaped into the unknown void and was no longer in this world. Void Cruising Sword. Even in the entire upper world, that movement secret skill was one of the top movement techniques and had already touched on the Tao and technique of space. Unless it was extremely dangerous, Yunting would not release Void Cruising Sword. Chi! A sharp-boned spear missed. Yunting turned around and could not help but frown when he saw who attacked. If those they encountered previously could be called otherworldly soldiers, this person before them could definitely be called an otherworldly general. The person had no head and rode on a crane. Wielding a bone spear, he was shrouded by a rich malevolent aura that was almost corporeal. This otherworldly general was already at the level 7 Earth Essence realm. This could already be considered as a high-level Earth Immortal. Although this otherworldly general did not have an essence spirit, and could not release divine powers and secret skills. The power he displayed earlier on was enough to kill Yunting. Even with Yunting's pride, he had to deal with it wholeheartedly, and did not dare to be careless. This was the final obstruction. As long as he could break through the obstruction of the otherworldly general, he would be able to reach the area enveloped by the light of the Jade Talisman. With that delay, Su Zimo had already caught up. From the corner of his eye, Yunting saw that in front of Su Zimo, there were also high-level Earth Immortal otherworldly generals. Furthermore, there were two of them, and they blocked him in a triangular manner. Yunting heaved a sigh of relief. There was no way Su Zimo could charge over in a short period of time with such terrifying otherworldly generals blocking him. But soon, Yunting realized that something was amiss. Although there were two terrifying otherworldly generals blocking the way ahead, Su Zimo's speed did not show any signs of decreasing and was extremely fast. "This is bad. It's that movement technique." Although Yunting did not witness it personally, he heard some cultivators mention it earlier on. According to those cultivators, Su Zimo relied on a strange movement technique that was almost like teleportation to cross the lake and pluck the 7 glow immortal ginseng. Indeed, just as Su Zimo was about to collide with the swords of the two otherworldly generals, his figure suddenly flashed. When he reappeared, Su Zimo had already left the two otherworldly generals behind. True Dragon 9 flashes. The path ahead was smooth without any obstacles. Su Zimo turned around and looked at Yunting, who was not far away, with a fake smile. Similarly, he extended a finger and waved it in front of him. "You!" Yunting was enraged. Up till this point of his cultivation, he had never suffered such provocation and humiliation. "Ha ha!" Su Zimo burst into laughter and turned to leave. Chapter 1991 Spatial Superposition. Chapter 1991 Spatial Superposition. The wings behind Su Zimo flapped and he transformed into a golden streak of light, entering the radius of the Jade Talisman's glow in the blink of an eye. The otherworldly soldiers that were chasing seemed to have sensed something and were extremely wary of the light emitted by the Jade Talisman. They stopped in their tracks and dispersed. The Jade Talisman was right in front of him. Up till now, Su Zimo did not know what secrets the Jade Talisman held. However, for the 3 immortal kingdoms, for immortal sects and countless sects and factions of the divine firmament mainland to flock to it, this Jade Talisman was definitely not simple. Without hesitation, Su Zimo rose into the air swiftly and grabbed the Jade Talisman high above. As long as he could get his hands on the Jade Talisman, it would mean that he had the advantage. Be it to fight or retreat, he could seize the initiative. Furthermore, he no longer had to fear the otherworldly soldiers with the Jade Talisman in his hands. Su Zimo was extremely fast and extended his palm. Just as he was about to grab the Jade Talisman, an extremely cold and murderous aura burst forth from behind him. A sword beam tore through the air at an astonishing speed and slashed towards Su Zimo's outstretched arm. That killing intent was way too terrifying. In that instant, Su Zimo felt as though he had fallen into an ice cellar, and his limbs went cold. If not for the fact that he was the Green Lotus true body and his blood chi was strong, that killing intent would have frozen his bloodline. The killing intent was so strong that even the heaven and earth slaying sword arts he cultivated could not compare to it. Could it be? A thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. Now that he was faced with a strong enemy and the situation was critical, he did not dare to be distracted or think too much. That sword chi was truly stunning. It was sharp, as though it could sever everything in the world, penetrate the void and destroy everything. Although the Green Lotus true body could take on a connate black-grey dermic treasure head-on, he could not defend against that sword strike. Su Zimo could almost predict that if he continued to reach for the Jade Talisman, his entire palm would be severed by the sword chi before he could even touch it. "It's Yunting!" Without turning back, Su Zimo already guessed who attacked. Yunting was the only one who could release such a terrifying sword chi. Su Zimo released the true Dragon 9 flashes and crossed the obstruction of the otherworldly soldiers first, but Yunting was not weak either. Disregarding the consumption of essence chi, he released Void Crossing Sword continuously to break free from the entanglement of the otherworldly general and charged over right after. Yunting was bent on getting his hands on the Jade Talisman, and he would not allow anyone to lay their hands on it. Therefore, he did not hold back at all when he stopped Su Zimo this time round and released his human slaying sword chi. Prior to this, although Yunting released sword chi that was sharp and could slice through metal and jade, those were only the most ordinary sword chi he had cultivated. The human slaying sword chi was much more terrifying than that. Su Zimo's expression was calm and his eyes were unmoved. He had experienced too many situations like this, and it was nothing much. He retracted his palm and his figure flashed, disappearing from the spot. At the level 9 Black Essence realm, Su Zimo could already release the true dragon flash 3 times in a short period of time. This was his second flash. When Su Zimo reappeared, he was already behind Yunting. Without hesitation, Su Zimo raised his palm and slapped the top of Yunting's head. This time round, Su Zimo did not hold back either, and released the Great Chaos Essence palm. Her fair and tender palm expanded instantly, as though it had transformed into a gigantic millstone, suppressing Yunting. Its aura was shocking, and it was so strong that the air exploded with a loud bang. Not only did he avoid Yunting's sword chi, he even reversed the situation and counterattacked. This change was extremely sudden. Su Zimo descended behind Yunting without any warning, and the latter had no time to react. He did not even have time to turn around, let alone escape. Good timing! Instead of panicking, Yunting hollered and his blood chi surged in rage. Suddenly Yunting's black hair stood on end and shot into the skies like countless swords, emitting an extremely sharp aura. Amazing! When he saw that, Su Zimo praised from the depths of his heart. Although Yunting was not old, his cultivation in the Tao of the sword was way too deep. He had already fused the sword Tao into every part of his body and had even cultivated it to the tip of his hair. Even his hair was a killing weapon that was extremely sharp. Even divine weapons and dermic treasures could not compare to it. Yunting's long hair stood on end, resembling countless flying swords. Boom! The Great Chaos Essence palm descended and collided with Yunting's long hair with a loud bang. Although the hair looked soft, its sharpness was terrifying and wanted to pierce the gigantic millstone above his head. Creak! Creak! The millstone crushed and spun, colliding against Yunting's long hair with an ear-piercing sound. Clang! Clang! A part of Yunting's black hair snapped, and the sound of a bowstring snapping could be heard. At the same time, Su Zimo felt a sharp pain in his palm. His long hair was like a sword and destroyed the Great Chaos Essence palm. Even Su Zimo was stunned by Yunting's move. Yunting's long hair snapped and the Great Chaos Essence palm dissipated at the same time. Su Zimo did not continue fighting and his figure flashed once more. The third flash. This time round, when Su Zimo reappeared, he was already beside the Jade Talisman. The Jade Talisman was within reach. Given the methods displayed by Yunting, it would be difficult to secure victory within a short period of time. Yunting was truly the most troublesome and powerful opponent he had encountered since he ascended to the upper world. If he continued fighting, it would be easy for other changes to happen when Fang and the others caught up. At that thought, Su Zimo made a prompt decision to retreat and get his hands on the Jade Talisman first. Don't even think about getting your hands on the Jade Talisman with me around. The moment Su Zimo reached out, Yunting's voice sounded in his ears. Su Zimo ignored Yunting's threat. No matter how fast the latter was, he could not compare to the true Dragon 9 flashes. Su Zimo reached out and his expression changed slightly. He missed. The Jade Talisman was right in front of him, but his grab missed. The Jade Talisman was still there motionlessly, but Su Zimo did not manage to grab it. It was as though there was a layer of space between his palm and the Jade Talisman. Spatial Superposition? Su Zimo frowned. Although Spatial Superposition was only a lesser divine power, it was extremely mysterious and difficult to comprehend. Space and time divine powers were extremely difficult to comprehend. Once comprehended and released, they would indeed be extremely powerful and shocking. Time-related divine powers such as time like a saber had always been one of Su Zimo's strongest killing moves. Although the spatial superposition released by Yunting earlier on was not lethal, it created a layer of space between Su Zimo and the Jade Talisman, causing his grab to miss. With that single move, Yunting had already arrived opposite Su Zimo. The Jade Talisman was right in front of them. However, if Su Zimo wanted to get his hands on the Jade Talisman, he would have to get through Yunting. It was the same for Yunting. Chapter 1992 Fight. Chapter 1992 Fight. This person is very strong. Su Zimo looked at Yunting, who was not far away, and murmured internally. After ascending to the upper world, apart from Tang Zi, Yunting was the only one who could make him release the true Dragon 9 flashes thrice in succession without any success. Furthermore, Su Zimo had a feeling that even if he could release a fourth flash, he would not be able to suppress this person. This was an extremely strong opponent that could even threaten him. Ever since he started cultivating, there were not many cultivators who could make him feel threatened. In Tianhuang mainland, there were only a few people. More importantly, there was a special connection between him and this Prince Yunting. Previously, when Yunting released that terrifying sword chi, a guess flashed through his mind. However, the situation was critical and he could not divert his attention to think about it. Now, Su Zimo was even more certain of his guess as he looked at Yunting, who was emitting a sharp aura. Seems like you've guessed it. Yunting chuckled. Su Zimo asked. Human slaying sword art? There was a high chance that only the human slaying sword art could possess such a terrifying killing intent that was even stronger than the heaven and earth slaying sword arts. That's right. Yunting did not hide anything and said frankly. I cultivated the human slaying sword art, while you cultivated the heaven slaying sword art. There have long been rumors that the heaven and earth slaying sword arts were left behind in the lower worlds. To think that the person who cultivated the heaven-slaying sword art would ascend to the upper world and even bump into me. This is the will of the heavens. This is an opportunity. Yunting was in high spirits and his words revealed immense confidence. The three great sword arts have been separated for many years. Even the heavens want to fuse them into one again. The heaven-slaying sword art has already appeared. If nothing goes wrong, the earth-slaying sword art will appear soon as well. I'll search for the earth-slaying sword art after I snatch your heaven-slaying sword art. At that time, when the three great sword arts are fused, I, Yunting, will become the #1 sword in Divine Firmament Mainland, 9 Firmament Immortal Domain, and even the entire heavenly world. In the future, I'll head to the sword world and challenge all the sword Dao experts there. I, Yunting, will use my sword to defeat all experts in the world and reign supreme for all eternity. With every word Yunting said, the sharpness of his body would turn sharper and his aura would strengthen. Yunting was accumulating strength. Although every single sentence he said seemed like he was muttering to himself, he was actually accumulating momentum for himself and exerting pressure on Su Zimo. Su Zimo's expression turned grim. It had been a long time since he had encountered such a terrifying and powerful opponent. The last person who gave him such pressure was Monk Daming. It's true that it is heaven's will to want to fuse the three great sword arts into one. Suddenly, Su Zimo smiled and said slowly. However, this might not be your opportunity. Yunting's intention to fuse the three great sword arts was shared with Su Zimo. Yunting glared at Su Zimo and nodded with a smile. You're right. We have the same thoughts. Therefore, even if we don't fight for the Jade Talisman, we'll definitely fight. His gaze was sharp as a sword and the glint in his eyes could even cause one to feel a sharp pain. If not for the fact that Su Zimo possessed the illumination and nether glow divine stones and cultivated 2 visual techniques, he would not have been able to meet Yunting's gaze. However, Su Zimo knew very well that if he avoided Yunting's gaze, the latter would definitely strike with the most ferocious attack given his senses. That was the terror of Yunting. On the other side, Yun Ting's evaluation of Su Zimo increased as well. If it was anyone else, they would not have been able to withstand his gaze. To think that this person who had ascended from the lower worlds could meet his gaze without being disadvantaged. Although the two of them were merely facing off on the surface, they were actually testing the waters. Any slight fluctuation or breathing or abnormal pulse would result in a shocking battle. Both parties were scrutinizing the other, carefully searching for openings. Among the otherworldly soldiers, Fang Xian and the others were still advancing with all their might. When Fang Xian and the others arrived, something else would definitely happen. There was not much time left for the two of them. Very good. Yun Ting was the first to speak and said in a deep voice, "You're indeed a good opponent and worthy of my full strength." The moment he said that, Yun Ting's pupils constricted like needles. Thereafter, two extremely sharp sword lights burst forth with a chilling aura. The two sword lights streaked through the void and even let out a sword hum. Without witnessing personally, it would be difficult to imagine that such terrifying sword lights were released from the eyes. Visual technique, Frost Soul Sword Eye. The two sword lights burst forth, and the surrounding void seemed to freeze as the temperature dipped. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit without holding back and released illumination and nether glow. However, something unexpected happened. Illumination Eye was released normally, and released a blinding beam of light that charged towards the two sword beams. However, there was no reaction from the nether glow eye. When Su Zimo's spirit consciousness entered his left eye, it did not cause any ripples, as though it had encountered some obstruction. Previously on the lone island, the nether glow stone absorbed a tremendous amount of power of darkness, and it was difficult for Su Zimo to activate it with his current essence spirit power. Of course, that power did not disappear and was hidden in the nether glow stone the entire time. If it was released one day, it would create an extremely terrifying scene. Boom! The two sword lights collided with the blazing beam of light and the ice melted, but they were reborn before long. If illumination and nether glow were released at the same time, they would definitely be superior to the Frost Soul Sword Eye. However, at that moment, there was only illumination eye. In this clash of visual techniques, Su Zimo was disadvantaged. Layers of frost formed on his body rapidly with a chilling intent. Boom! Yun Ting suddenly attacked and crossed the void, arriving instantly with a punch. Su Zimo had just been covered in frost, and his movements were slightly affected when Yun Ting attacked. Any openings or opportunities would not be missed in a fight between top monster incarnates. All the momentum that Yun Ting had accumulated earlier on was gathered on that punch. It was torrential and unstoppable. In fact, Su Zimo felt suffocated. Before the punch arrived, his cheek was already in pain from the wind. He was way too strong. Against that punch, Su Zimo had nowhere to dodge. He punched in reverse, as though a gigantic seal was formed, towards Yun Ting's fist. Bang! The fist collided and the sound of flesh and bones grinding echoed. The power of the two of them was released completely in that punch. The two of them were evenly matched in terms of physique. But soon Su Zimo felt a sharp pain on his fist. Yun Ting's sword Dao had already been cultivated to every part of his body. His brows, hair and even the hairs on his body were sharp killing weapons. Apart from the burst of his physical strength, Yun Ting's punch was also sharp. Although the sharpness of the sword Dao could not break through the defense of the Green Lotus true body, it stung Su Zimo. Chapter 1993 Change. Chapter 1993 Change. Both parties shuddered from the clash, and it was hard to tell who was stronger. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged. He took advantage of the moment when the two of them were fighting to change his move at the last moment, turning his fist into a palm. The Great Chaos Essence palm was formed and crushed towards Yun Ting. The moment Su Zimo changed his move, Yun Ting changed his move as well. He closed two fingers and conjured a sword finger, turning his fist into a sword. The two of them had a strange chemistry and displayed unparalleled combat talent, unwilling to let go of any opportunity. The Great Chaos Essence palm was thick and steady with immense strength. His sword finger was sharp and could slice through metal and jade. The palm and sword collided with another loud bang. Crack! 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 Cracks appeared on the gigantic millstone formed by the great Chaos Essence palm. The sharpness released by Yun Ting's sword finger shattered inch by inch as well. The two of them swayed slightly before retreating rapidly to distance themselves so that they could resolve the power that surged into their bodies. Although the fight between the two of them seemed short, it was almost at the peak of a grade 9 black immortal strength. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Ever since the Green Lotus True Body grew to grade 9, no one could defend against the power of the Green Lotus True Body's body even if he did not use blood qi. Be it the paragons of the four immortal sects or Fang Xian earlier on, they were weaker. Yun Ting was the only one who could fight the Green Lotus True Body head-on without being disadvantaged. Ever since Su Zimo ascended to the upper world, the Green Lotus True Body had grown rapidly. He cultivated a taboo mystic classic like the Prajna Nirvana Sutra and had already cultivated to the peak of grade 9 after absorbing utmost treasures such as the Sal Tree Leaf and 7 Glow Immortal Ginseng. He was only a step away from advancing to grade 10. Even so, the Green Lotus True Body could not gain the upper hand. In terms of strength, Yun Ting's physique was not weaker than his. In battle, Yun Ting displayed extremely terrifying talent and techniques as well. Yun Ting was only 200 years old, and was too young. His potential was limitless. Up till this point of his cultivation, Su Zimo was already more than 2,000 years old. While Su Zimo was pondering, Yun Ting was even more shocked. Initially, Yun Ting thought that Su Zimo specialized in the heaven-slaying sword art and movement technique. However, he had not expected that there would be someone in the upper world who could defend against his physical strength. From the moment he was born, a phenomenon accompanied him. In order to help him temper his body, his father had searched for countless treasures and elixirs. He cultivated 10 top-tier body tempering cultivation techniques. When he was 100 years old, he fused the 10 body tempering cultivation techniques with the human's slaying sword art, and underwent a complete transformation, attaining greater mastery of his body and bloodline. Even ordinary earth immortals could not defend against his sword finger. Yun Ting had not expected that someone of the same cultivation realm could match him. Good, good, good! Yun Ting nodded repeatedly with a delighted expression. The sword intent in his eyes intensified and burned. Su Zimo's aura rose continuously as well with a surging battle intent and a burning gaze. Neither of them would retreat against such a rare opponent. Yun Ting's appearance triggered Su Zimo's pride as well. Battle! Almost at the same time, the two of them shouted and their figures swayed as they collided once more. Bang! 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 Clang! Clang! Su Zimo's fists, palms, claws, feet, shoulders, elbows, knees and every other part of his body could release extremely terrifying killing moves with unparalleled strength. Every single attack was accompanied by a fervent killing intent. Those methods were fused with the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, and the combat techniques of the Azure Dragon to form a combat technique that was suitable for his Green Lotus True Body and possessed shocking might. Yun Ting was not weak either. His fingers, hair, sleeves, fists, and every single move could release a sharp edge. No matter how ferocious Su Zimo's attacks were, he could resolve them. The two of them fought in melee combat and fought with speed. It was almost impossible to tell their figures apart as the sound of collisions could be heard continuously. Melee combat was the most dangerous. However, the two of them fought fiercely and within dozens of breaths, they had already exchanged hundreds of blows. Neither of them could gain the upper hand and it was a stalemate. Bang! The two of them clashed once more before retreating and breathing slowly. At that moment, it revealed how terrifying their stamina was. Neither of them had expended too much energy after the fight. Both of them merely had heavy breathing and slightly rosy faces. You should be proud to be able to defend against so many of my moves. Yun Ting raised his head slightly. Use the heaven-slaying sword art. Let me see what level you've cultivated it to. All right, as you wish. Su Zimo sneered. I want to see how powerful the legendary human-slaying sword art is to be ranked at the top of the 3 great sword arts. The moment he said that, Suzimo channeled his essence spirit and conjured a sword art with his left hand. His aura changed and he emitted a cold, killing intent. The skies above the hall were filled with stars, but at that moment, they lost their trajectory and were in chaos. Yunting looked at the stars in the firmaments and murmured, "When the heaven's killing intent is released, the stars are shifted out of alignment. Not bad, not bad." As he said that, Yunting raised his palm slowly. A ball of sword light condensed in his palm. If his palm represented a world, the sword light was akin to shattering the entire world. Yunting's killing intent intensified. "This is the human-slaying sword art." Suzimo's eyes shone brightly. Indeed, he sensed a shuddering aura from the sword light that seemed like it could destroy the world. Yunting nodded slightly. "Indeed, this is the human-slaying sword art. However, this is not the peak of its power." Suzimo's heart skipped a beat. Even though it was not the strongest manifestation of the human-slaying sword art, he already felt a sense of threat and trepidation. Yunting paused for a moment before changing the topic. He chuckled and said confidently, "However, it's enough to deal with your heaven-slaying sword art." "Is that so?" Suzimo's gaze intensified as he released the heaven-slaying sword art with all his might. Suzimo waved his sword finger and instantly, 108,000 sword chi spewed out from his fingertip. They were dense and blazing, covering the skies. His other hand was empty the entire time, ready. If the heaven-slaying sword art could not defeat him, he would condense his sword finger and release the earth-slaying sword art. Yunting flipped his palm and sent the sword light in his palm out as well. Compared to Suzimo's 108,000 heaven-slaying sword chi, the sword light seemed much weaker. However, it was filled with a terrifying aura. Once the sword light exploded, it would definitely be earth-shaking. Just as the 2 great sword arts were about to collide, a change happened. On the other side, a black figure charged towards Suzimo with lightning speed and a murderous aura. The figure came from Suzimo's side at an extremely fast speed. It closed in rapidly and punched towards Suzimo's temple. It was incomparably ferocious, and the air tore with a buzzing sound. This person's timing was perfect. This was the moment where Suzimo had no time or energy to deal with other unforeseen circumstances after attacking. "Prince Yunting, let me help you kill this lad." The intruder laughed with a sinister smile hidden in the darkness. Fang Xian of the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom. Chapter 1994 Tacit Understanding. Chapter 1994 Tacit Understanding. Suzimo and Yunting were fighting and neither of them dared to be distracted as they gave it their all. Neither of them noticed that Fang Xian had already charged out of the encirclement of the otherworldly soldiers. Fang Xian was brilliant and strong. He could definitely be considered as a top monster incarnate among the Black Immortals and could even fight against Suzimo or Yunting. Even in a head-on fight, he might not lose to the 2 of them. However, Fang Xian was scheming and crafty. In this chaotic and complicated situation, he would definitely not choose to fight Suzimo alone. The best way was to join forces with Yunting. Yunting had a noble status. Apart from his strength, as a prince, he might possess other unfathomable trump cards. If he joined forces with Yunting to get rid of Suzimo, the rest would not be a threat. Even if he could not get his hands on the Jade Talisman in the end, the benefits of befriending Yunting would be unimaginable. As someone who had ascended from the lower worlds, he would not let go of any chance to change his fate, and could even resort to unscrupulous means. Therefore, Fang Xian's attack this time round was thunderous, and did not give Suzimo any chance to escape. Although Suzimo's spirit perception warned him first, the pressure and threat Yunting gave him was way too great. The current situation was equivalent to him fighting 1 against 2. Furthermore, both of them were top-tier experts of the Black Essence realm. The pressure on Suzimo increased exponentially. It had been a long time since he had been forced into such a dangerous situation by a cultivator of the same cultivation realm. If Su Zimo were to release all his trump cards, he would naturally be able to neutralize their attacks. However, his green lotus true body would not be able to remain hidden. As long as he used his blood chi, Prince Yunting would definitely recognize him given the latter's experience. But now that the situation was critical, he would definitely be severely injured if he did not use his blood chi or even his bloodline phenomenon. Su Zimo had no way out. Instantly, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Thereafter, a resolute look flashed through his eyes as he prepared to attack with his full strength. Right then, a change happened in the situation. Fang Xian's sudden appearance not only shocked Su Zimo, even Yunting was slightly stunned. Immediately, Yunting's expression was enraged and killing intent flashed through his eyes. He was too proud and disdained to join forces with others. It was rare to meet an opponent like Su Zimo. If he wanted to win, he would do it openly. Furthermore, Fang Xian was not joining forces with him, it was an ambush. In fact, Yunting felt like he was being used. Given his pride, he would definitely not allow Su Zimo to die in front of him like this. In a flash, Yunting glanced at Su Zimo and his spirit consciousness moved. The human-slaying sword light that was about to collide with the heaven-slaying sword chi suddenly dissipated into essence chi and dispersed in the hall. Yunting retracted his attack at the last moment. In a fight, if one party suddenly stopped and the other party did not or could not stop in time, it would be equivalent to committing suicide. That choice was way too risky. It was equivalent to Yunting exposing himself to the 108,000 heaven-slaying sword chi. The moment Yunting dispersed the human-slaying sword light, his other hand conjured a sword art with a cold killing intent and slashed towards Fang Xian. The human-slaying sword chi burst forth and was aimed at Fang Xian. You! When Fang Xian noticed that, he was shocked and enraged, cursing internally as a lunatic. He had schemed and deduced countless possible changes, but he had not expected Yunting to make such a choice. On the other side, Yunting's change of move surprised Su Zimo as well. Initially, he was surrounded by two top experts, and was in a dangerous situation. But now, the situation was reversed because of Yunting's choice. Instead, he had a chance of becoming the biggest winner. As long as he did not stop, even if the 108,000 heaven-slaying sword chi could not kill Yunting, they could severely injure him. At the same time, Yunting had already attacked Fang Xian and released his human-slaying sword chi. If Su Zimo turned to deal with Fang Xian, there was a high chance that he would severely injure the latter. With that, he could get rid of two of his greatest opponents and threats. Su Zimo did not even look at Fang Xian at the side. He merely looked at Yunting deeply and his spirit consciousness moved. He chose to stop as well and disperse the 108,000 heaven-slaying sword chi. Yunting was prideful and stopped because of that. Su Zimo was an upright person and would not hit someone when they were down. The two of them had different personalities and backgrounds and had never met before. Earlier on, they were still fighting intensely. However, at this moment, they had a strange tacit understanding. Initially, Su Zimo was prepared to condense the earth-slaying sword art with his empty palm. However, at that moment, his killing intent was triggered. This Fang Xian was way too sinister. It was like a viper hiding in the dark, never knowing when it would appear and deal a fatal blow. Instantly, Su Zimo channeled his spirit consciousness, and the gray fog in his palm surged, forming a saber that emitted a shuddering aura. The greater divine power, time is like a saber. Against Fang Xian's punch, Su Zimo did not dodge or avoid and slashed with the time saber in reverse. In the blink of an eye, the situation changed and Fang Xian was surrounded by two monster incarnates, Su Zimo and Yunting. Indeed, Fang Xian was faster. However, even if he could hit Su Zimo on the head, it would be difficult for him to escape from the killing sword chi behind him. Fang Xian did not have the guts to use his life in exchange. He had ascended through the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation and did not want to die yet. Instantly, Fang Xian could only retreat. Right then, the time saber slashed over. Although the gray saber was strange, Fang Xian did not feel much threat. Furthermore, compared to the killing sword qi on the other side, the gray saber seemed even more ordinary. Most of Fang Xian's energy was spent on dealing with the human's slaying sword qi. He took a deep breath and condensed at least a dozen lesser divine powers in front of him, most of them defensive divine powers. On the other side, he waved his sleeves as he retreated towards the time saber. Bang! The saber was shattered by him with ease and his sleeves were not damaged at all. How could this be? The fact that he was able to neutralize the gray saber with ease alarmed Fang Xian instead. However, it was too late. The power of time had already surged into his body. Initially, Fang Xuanyan was only slightly more than 10,000 years old. For a black immortal with a lifespan of 100,000 years, he was considered young. However, his lifespan was reduced by 60,000 years after he was slashed by the time saber. In the lower worlds, the time saber could sever 30,000 years of lifespan with a single slash. In the upper world, when released with heaven and earth essence qi, its power would increase exponentially and a single slash could sever 60,000 years of lifespan. Initially, Fang Xian was only a black-robed young man. In the blink of an eye, he missed his peak and was now more than 70,000 years old. Fang Xian was not wrong. Indeed, the time saber could not threaten his life. However, the impact of losing 60,000 years of lifespan was way too great for him. It was difficult to accept the difference and loss of time in a short period of time. Furthermore, now that Fang Xian was more than 70,000 years old, in terms of physique, blood qi, essence, spirit and body, he had already missed his peak and was now going downhill. Chapter 1995 Death of Fang Xian. Chapter 1995 Death of Fang Xian. Although Su Zimo's slash did not manage to kill Fang Xian directly, the impact on him was way too great. Fang Xian's figure swayed slightly and for a moment, many openings appeared in the dozens of divine powers and secret skills condensed in front of him. Due to the time saber, a full 60,000 years of his lifespan disappeared and his essence spirit fluctuated violently. It was already incredible that the divine powers and secret skills did not dissipate on the spot. That was also proof of Fang Xian's terrifying control. Even if he was struck by the time saber, he could calm down right away and try his best to adapt to his current body. If it was just the time saber, it would naturally not be a threat to Fang Xian. However, the moment Fang Xian's lifespan decreased, the human's slaying sword qi descended. Poof! 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 The dozens of divine powers and secret skills in front of Fang Xian shattered one after another, and could not defend against the killing power of the human's slaying sword qi. If Fang Xian had not been struck by the time saber, he would not have been in such a sorry state after condensing the dozens of divine powers and secret skills. However, his essence spirit was unstable after being struck by the time saber, and flaws appeared in the dozens of divine powers and secret skills. Coupled with the fact that the human's slaying sword qi was way too terrifying and killing intent was at its limits, the dozens of divine powers and secret skills were penetrated by it with ease. The sharpness of the human's slaying sword qi surged towards Fang Xian, wanting to slice him up. Ah! At that moment of life and death, Fang Xian roared with a menacing expression and chopped down with his left arm using his right hand. Fang Xian's hand cleaver was extremely sharp as well and sliced off his left arm in a single motion. Fresh blood gushed out and floated in the air without dissipating. "It's not that easy to kill me!" Fang Xian growled and channeled his essence spirit, releasing a secret skill from the divine elephant breathing technique at the cost of losing an arm. Bang! The severed arm exploded and many flesh and bones gathered in front of Fang Xian, forming a blood-colored elephant tusk with a torrential blood stench. Under Fang Xian's control, the elephant tusk smashed towards the human's slaying sword qi. Clang! It was a clash of sharpness. An ear-piercing sound echoed, as though metal was colliding. Crack! 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 cracks appeared on the blood-colored elephant tusk, and after a brief pause, it shattered. Although the human slaying sword she had faded significantly, it still emitted a chilling killing intent that was enough to kill any black immortal. Even Fang Xian's severed arm and secret skill could not defend against a single human slaying sword chi. However, that single delay gave Fang Xian a rare breather. Swoosh! Fang Xian channeled his bloodline, and the sound of a tsunami echoed from his body. Immediately after, a gigantic divine elephant appeared behind Fang Xian and swung its trunk, roaring into the skies. On both sides of the divine elephant's trunk were 6 gigantic white tusks that were smooth as jade and sharp. That was Fang Xian's bloodline phenomenon, the 6-tusked divine elephant. One of the innate divine powers that Su Zimo cultivated came from the 6-tusked divine elephant. As though it sensed the threat as well, the divine elephant swung its trunk and whipped towards the incoming sword light. Poof! The sword light was sharp and sliced the divine elephant's trunk into 2. The human slaying sword she was way too ferocious. It penetrated the dozens of divine powers and secret skills of Fang Xian, destroyed the secret skill condensed by his severed arm, and even shattered his bloodline phenomenon. Of course, after colliding with the bloodline phenomenon, the human slaying sword she dissipated as well. Clutching his broken arm, Fang Xian retreated and distanced himself from Su Zimo and Yunting rapidly. He was overjoyed, and his eyes were filled with the exhilaration of surviving a calamity. This was the combined attack of Su Zimo and Yunting. Fang Xian was proud to be able to escape from their killing moves and survive. Apart from Fang Xian, there was probably no one else in the Emperor's tomb who could defend against the 2 killing moves earlier on. Ha ha! Fang Xian laughed wildly and shouted, "I've already said that you guys can't kill me!" Although he lost an arm this time round, he did not suffer any setbacks after this battle. Instead, he comprehended much more. This was an experience at the brink of life and death that was extremely difficult to replicate. Once he returned to the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom, he would definitely advance to the Earth Essence realm and become an Earth Immortal. At that time, his lifespan would increase to 200,000 years, and the loss of 60,000 years would be nothing. Earth Immortals could regrow severed limbs, and so his severed arm could be regrown. This brush with life and death was a rare experience, an ordeal for him. As long as he could get out alive, his combat strength would increase significantly. This was a true monster incarnate. As long as they could survive the test of life and death, they could grow rapidly. Su Zimo glanced at Fang Xian indifferently and lamented internally. If this person were to leave, he would definitely become a strong foe and a huge calamity. However, he was in front of a great enemy at the moment, and could not split himself into 2 to chase after Fang Xian. That was unless he intended to let Yunting have the Jade Talisman. Yunting knew that as well. He looked at Fang Xian and smiled gently, shouting, "You're quite capable to be able to defend against my human slaying sword chi. I'll spare your life today." "Scram! Hee hee!" Fang Xian sneered. "I'll remember the favor of losing my arm and lifespan today. If we meet in the future, I'll definitely thank you guys properly." After saying that, Fang Xian prepared to leave. He had lost an arm and his lifespan was reduced. In order to dispel the human slaying sword chi earlier on, he had almost used all his trump cards and could no longer fight for the Jade Talisman. Right now, the most important thing was for him to escape while he still had the strength to do so. Just as he turned around, a cold glint flashed. Fast. It was too fast. There was no time to react at all. Fang Xian felt his throat turn cold. Immediately after, a warm and sticky liquid sprayed out continuously in a scarlet manner. That was his blood. With a horrified expression, Fang Xian reached out in a panic and clutched the wound on his throat. However, blood continued flowing through his fingers and could not be stopped. His throat was almost severed by some sharp weapon. Not far in front of Fang Xian, a purple figure appeared. Tang Zi was expressionless as she waved her hand gently. Blood dripped down from her sharp fingernails and they became squeaky clean once more. "You!" "Croak, croak!" Fang Xian pointed at Tang Zi with an enraged expression, as though he wanted to say something. However, he could only let out a strange sound. You can't leave. Tang Zi flicked her fingernails and said indifferently. The 5 fingernails retracted slowly as though they had never appeared. Her fingers were slender like green onions and her jade-like hands were lean. They did not look like hands that could kill. Broop! Broop! Fang Xian wanted to speak again. However, the moment he opened his mouth, blood began to flow, and he could not say a single word. The anger in Fang Xian's eyes gradually turned into fear. He could clearly sense the loss of life in his body that could not be stopped or reversed. He realized that he was not going to survive. Even if his essence spirit could leave his body, it would not last long. A strong sense of indignance surged in his heart. He managed to defend against the combined attack of Su Zimo and Yun Ting. To think that he could not avoid that final fatal attack. Chapter 1996 Heaven Slaying, Earth Slaying. Chapter 1996 Heaven Slaying, Earth Slaying. Fang Xian glared at Tang Zi with bloodshot eyes. Although he looked weak right now, as long as Tang Zi leaned forward, he could still launch his final counterattack before his blood chi deteriorated completely. However, as a top assassin, Tang Zi was way too cautious. It was a fatal attack without any entanglement, and she maintained a relatively safe distance from Fang Xian. She did not need to do anything else. As long as she looked at Fang Xian quietly and waited patiently, the latter would definitely die. Her fingernails were sharp and lightning was hidden on them. Fang Xian's torn throat could not be healed at all. Fang Xian could only wait for death. Su Zimo felt emotional when he saw that. Previously, Fang Xian took the initiative to attack Tang Zi and the outcome was undecided. To think that Fang Xian would still die in Tang Zi's hands in the end. That was the terror of a top-tier assassin. Of course, Fang Xian's death was not unjustified. This was equivalent to Su Zimo, Yun Ting and Tang Zi, 3 peerless monster incarnates attacking. There was probably no black immortal in this world who could survive the encirclement of these 3 people. In that short period of time, Fang Xian's eyes dimmed and his face turned pale. His body began to sway and he could not hold on any longer. A light shone on Fang Xian's head and an essence spirit left his body. He could only abandon his body. However, his essence spirit did not fly far before it was tainted by the curse of the Emperor's tomb. Its aura was weak and dimmed as it gradually dissipated. Fang Xian was invincible in the lower worlds and had passed the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation. In terms of potential and endowment, he was not much inferior to Su Zimo. However, he still died here and no one would remember him in the future. This was the cruelty of the upper world. Because of Fang Xian's background, Su Zimo thought of himself and felt emotional. However, Yun Ting's expression was calm. As a prince of the upper world, although he was very young, he was long indifferent to such things. Throughout history, there had been too many monster incarnates like Fang Xian who died. To Yun Ting, those who died early were nothing. Only true experts could rise continuously and stand tall. Yun Ting looked at Su Zimo and suddenly asked, "Why did you stop earlier on?" He was asking about the 108,000 heaven-slaying sword chi that Su Zimo condensed initially before dissipating. Su Zimo said, "Since you chose to change moves, I won't hit you when you're down either." Fu! Yun Ting chuckled and raised his brow. "You're thinking too much. Since I dared to change moves, I'm naturally confident that I can withstand your heaven-slaying sword chi. However, you're different from me. If I hadn't changed my move earlier on, you would have died." Su Zimo smiled as well. "That's unnecessary. Even if you hadn't changed moves, I would have been able to escape unscathed from you and Fang Xian's combined attacks." Although the 2 of them stopped attacking for the time being, they still competed fiercely through words. Su Zimo was not lying either. Of course, even if he could escape unscathed, he would definitely expose the secret of the Green Lotus true body. Yun Ting pouted. "Your trump card has already been exposed. That time divine power is indeed not bad. However, since I've already seen it and am prepared, it's no longer a threat to me. Pausing for a moment, Yunting glanced at Tang Zi, who was not far away, and said proudly, "The two of you can come at me together. I'll take it alone." Yunting was way too conceited. He did not care to join forces with others, nor was he afraid of them joining forces against him. Tang Zi was expressionless. For her, she had no qualms about bullying with numbers. For assassins, they only pursued results. She would not feel burden either. Even if Yunting did not say it, she would find an opportunity to get rid of him. Right then, four figures approached rapidly and surrounded Tang Zi. The moment Fang Xian died, the four paragons of the four immortal sects had already charged through the encirclement of the otherworldly soldiers. The four of them were extremely smart, and could see through the situation. Su Zimo and Yunting were like two ferocious tigers. The wisest thing for them to do right now was to let the two ferocious tigers fight and kill one another. As for the four of them, if they could resolve the latent danger of Tang Zi, they could sit by and watch the tigers fight, controlling the situation and becoming the eventual victors. If Su Zimo and Tang Zi were to join forces to kill Yunting, the four of them might not be a match for Su Zimo and her. The four of them conversed, and were prepared to join forces to kill Tang Zi first. Although Tang Zi's expression was unchanged, she was slightly shocked. The four of them were unlike the cultivators of the 10 absolute hell. They came from the four immortal sects, and were each more troublesome to deal with than the other. If it was a one-on-one fight, she was confident that she could kill any of them. Even against two of them, she could guarantee that she would not be defeated. However, she could barely protect herself against the encirclement of four experts, let alone assassinate Yunting. "Female patron, stop running around. Fight us!" the bald monk said with a smile and waved his wide sleeves, attacking first. Immediately after, the Iron Tower man, middle-aged Taoist and blue-dressed woman attacked one after another. The four of them joined forces and released a torrential storm of attacks that was suffocating. Although the situation was critical, there was no hint of panic on Tang Zi's face. With a calm expression, she shifted and fought against the four paragons. On the other side, Yunting shook his head gently. "Unfortunately, this lady can't even protect herself. She can't help you anymore. I alone am enough to defeat you." Su Zimo's gaze intensified and his aura began to climb. "All right." Yunting's aura intensified as he said slowly, "Let's see what else you have." Su Zimo pinched his sword fingers with both hands and channeled two completely different sword arts that were filled with a terrifying killing intent. Initially, Su Zimo wanted to hide the earth-slaying sword art as a backup plan. However, when he saw how terrifying the human-slaying sword she was earlier on, he did not dare to hold back and release the heaven and earth-slaying sword arts at the same time. Above the firmaments, the stars were shifted out of alignment. On the fingertip of Su Zimo's right hand, the 108,000 heaven-slaying sword she gathered continuously, forming a heaven-slaying sword that was intertwined with sword chi. Su Zimo's left sword finger moved and the ground trembled, cracking continuously as a gigantic soaring serpent condensed from sword chi burrowed out. The skies split open and a gigantic blue dragon popped its head out, glaring at Yunting murderously with its horns. When the earth's killing intent is released, the dragon snake shall rise. The heaven and earth slaying sword arts were conjured at the same time and Su Zimo pushed them to their limits. The entire hall could sense endless killing intent that threatened to destroy the world. The four paragons that surrounded Tang Zi were secretly alarmed when they saw that. The auras of the two great sword arts were way too terrifying. Extreme killing power. If that was the case for the four paragons outside the battlefield, it was hard to imagine the pressure Yunting was under. If the four of them saw Yunting's face, they would be shocked. Yunting was actually smiling. He could not conceal the joy and ecstasy in his eyes. Finally, Yunting could not hold it in any longer, and reared his head in laughter with an excited expression. Chapter 1997 Humans Slaying Sword Intent. Chapter 1997 Humans Slaying Sword Intent. Yun Ting was truly delighted. The heaven and earth slaying sword arts were both in the hands of a single person. Furthermore, they were in front of him. This was a gift from the heavens. What were opportunities? This. As long as he defeated Su Zimo, he would be able to obtain the two sword arts and fuse them together. Good, good, good. After laughing, Yun Ting nodded repeatedly. It's best that you mastered the heaven and earth slaying sword arts. This way, I don't have to hold back. I'll let you witness the true might of the human slaying sword art. The stronger Su Zimo was, the more excited Yun Ting was. In his eyes, all his opponents were his sword testing stones, and would only make his sword Dao sharper and unstoppable. You've only mastered one of the three great sword arts. No matter how strong the human slaying sword art is, how can it fight against heaven and earth? Su Zimo conjured the heaven and earth slaying sword arts with both hands and sneered at the energetic Yun Ting. Ha ha! Yun Ting stood in midair and was surrounded by countless sword chi. His black hair danced as he laughed. Today, I'll tell you why the human slaying sword is the top of the three great sword arts. Even with the heaven slaying sword hovering above his head, Yun Ting's aura was still unparalleled and could not be suppressed by the soaring serpent and blue dragon. With every word, the sharpness of Yun Ting's body intensified, as though he wanted to break through the world and sever the void. Yun Ting's figure turned blurry and was faintly discernible in midair. In its place was a sharp sword with torrential killing intent. Looking at the current Yun Ting, Su Zimo gradually understood. He finally understood why the human slaying sword art is the top of the three great sword arts. Right then, Yun Ting's voice sounded once more. Although the expert who created this sword art is not from the heavenly world, he is still a human. When the heaven's killing intent is released, the stars are shifted out of alignment. When the earth's killing intent is released, the dragon's snake shall rise. When the human's killing intent is released, heaven and earth shall topple. The intention of this sword art is to fight against heaven and earth with the body of a human. Everywhere it points, even heaven and earth shall topple and give way. After saying that, Yun Ting's figure vanished completely, and in its place was a sword that was about to tear heaven and earth apart with extreme killing power. Apart from its killing power, the human slaying sword art contained an unyielding sword intent that rose against the tides and could not be suppressed by heaven and earth. Although the heaven and earth slaying sword arts were strong, they were way too inferior in terms of intent and were countered by the human slaying sword art. The human slaying sword slashed forward. Boom! There was no sound of metal clashing when the three great sword arts collided. Instead, there was a loud bang. Crack! 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 Immediately after, a series of cracking sounds could be heard from midair. Cracks appeared on the heaven's slaying sword, soaring serpent, and blue dragon. Although the light on the human slaying sword dimmed significantly, it was still filled with an extremely sharp edge that could destroy the world. The human slaying sword art was way too strong. Even the heaven and earth slaying swords could not defend against the might of the human slaying sword. Swoosh! The human slaying sword charged through the encirclement of the heaven and earth slaying sword arts and descended from the skies, slashing towards Su Zimo. Although the entire process sounded slow, it happened in an instant. After destroying the two sword arts, the human slaying sword descended on Su Zimo's head without any pause and did not give him any time to react. At that moment, Yun Ting was slightly stunned as well. Unknowingly, a gigantic turtle shell had formed in front of Su Zimo. It was filled with divine powers and shone brightly. There were complicated ravines on the turtle shell that shone mysteriously. Innate divine power, spirit turtle shield. Under normal circumstances, Su Zimo did not have time to activate that innate divine power. However, after he sensed the sword intent contained by the human slaying sword art, he realized that the heaven and earth slaying sword arts could not defend against it at all. It was a complete suppression of strength, aura, and intent. Therefore, after releasing the two sword arts, Su Zimo did not pause at all and forcefully activated the spirit turtle shield. Divine powers and secret skills such as the heaven and earth slaying sword arts, as well as the spirit turtle shield, consumed a lot of essence spirit. If it was any other black immortal, their essence spirits would not be able to withstand the release of those 3 divine powers and secret skills in a short period of time, and would collapse on the spot. Thankfully, Su Zimo's essence spirit had already reached the Earth Immortal realm. Furthermore, he was a green lotus essence spirit, and could withstand many divine powers and secret skills in a short period of time. The Spirit Turtle Shield was the strongest defensive technique in the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. The human slaying sword art was the peak of killing power. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the human slaying sword art struck the Spirit Turtle Shield and let out a deafening bang. The entire hall shook. On the other side of the battlefield, the 4 paragons and Tang Zi were alarmed. The sword and shield collided and released a blinding light. The 5 of them merely glanced from the corner of their eyes from afar and felt a sharp pain. The 4 paragons were shocked and felt relieved at the same time. Thankfully, the 4 of them did not participate in the fight between the 2 of them. Otherwise, who could defend against such an attack? The light of the collision of the sword and shield engulfed the 2 of them instantly. In fact, the 5 of them did not even know who had the upper hand in this clash. After a while, the light gradually dissipated and Su Zimo and Yun Ting reappeared. The 2 of them were still standing where they were. The sword and shield had vanished, and they did not seem to have moved at all. Only those who were still alive in the hall knew how terrifying the fight between the 2 of them was. It should be a draw. Tang Zi heaved a sigh of relief. Although she was facing 4 strong foes, she knew in her heart that the one opposite Su Zimo was even more terrifying. Su Zimo frowned slightly. The human slaying sword art was much stronger than he had imagined. Even after being exhausted by heaven and earth slaying sword arts, the human slaying sword art could still tie with the Spirit Turtle Shield. This meant that if he merely released the divine power of the Spirit Turtle Shield, he would not be able to defend against the sharpness of the human slaying sword art. On the other side, although Yun Ting looked calm, his heart was in turmoil. The human slaying sword art had returned fruitless and was blocked. Up till this point of his cultivation, there had never been anyone of the same cultivation realm who could defend against the sharpness of the human slaying sword art. The person before him was completely unharmed against the human slaying sword art. Indeed, you surprised me. Yun Ting composed himself swiftly and spoke slowly. However, pausing for a moment, Yun Ting changed the topic. If that's all you've got, you'll definitely lose today. Confidence returned to Yun Ting's eyes as he raised his head proudly. He was not lying. Even if he could not release the human slaying sword art again within a short period of time, he still had many powerful trump cards that he could rely on. However, to Yun Ting, Su Zimo was at his wits' end. As the prince of an immortal kingdom, he had a noble status and unlimited resources. That was why he had so many powerful methods. However, Su Zimo was someone who ascended from the lower worlds after all. Without the heaven and earth slaying sword arts as well as the turtle shell divine power or strange movement technique, what else could this person have left? Chapter 1998 Might of Sword Blood. Chapter 1998 Might of Sword Blood. The situation in the hall was gradually becoming clearer. The only ones who truly broke out of the encirclement of the otherworldly soldiers were Su Zimo, Yun Ting, Fang Xian, Tang Zi, and the paragons of the 4 immortal sects. There were less than 10 people in total. Now that Fang Xian was dead, the 7 of them were the only ones left to fight for the Jade Talisman. The other cultivators no longer had a chance. To be precise, it was already extremely fortunate if those cultivators managed to survive. The number of otherworldly soldiers increased, and there was no way to kill them all. Furthermore, the otherworldly soldiers that awakened later on were stronger, and the black immortals in the tomb were sliced like vegetables. There were more than 10,000 cultivators who entered the hall, but now, there were less than 1,000. Blood-chi filled the hall and corpses were strewn everywhere. Some cultivators with foresight had already begun charging out of the hall. The otherworldly soldiers seemed to be restricted by something and could not leave the palace. As long as they escaped from the palace, they would be able to survive. Beneath the Jade Talisman, Su Zimo faced off against Yun Ting. The paragons of the four immortal sects surrounded Tang Zi and fought intensely without stopping. Although the battle between the five of them was not as earth-shaking as the fight between Su Zimo and Yun Ting, it was still dangerous. While Tang Zi was best at assassination, it was difficult for her to unleash it in such a battle. She was surrounded by four paragons and could not break out at all. Her combat strength was definitely superior to any of the four paragons individually. However, the difference between 1 and 4 was too great. Up till this point of the battle, Tang Zi had only been contending against the four paragons with her unfathomable movement techniques and immense combat talent. Zi had been dodging and defending the entire time without retaliating. The four paragons had great chemistry with one another. Even if someone revealed an opening, others would make up for it swiftly. If Tang Zi were to retaliate forcefully, there was a high chance that she would be severely injured. The current situation was a little strange. Among the 7 of them, Su Zimo and Yun Ting were definitely superior in terms of combat strength. However, the 2 of them could fight at any moment, and it might benefit others instead. The situation was changing rapidly, and all 7 of them had a chance of snatching the Jade Talisman. Yun Ting swept his gaze across the battlefield at the side before looking at Su Zimo and saying slowly, "I'm determined to get my hands on the Jade Talisman as well as the heaven and earth slaying sword arts. I won't give you another chance." Yun Ting was confident that he was invincible, and there was a hint of cynicism in his expression when he attacked previously. It was only now that he was serious and fully prepared. Splash! A tsunami surged from Yun Ting's body with a terrifying might. Tsunami blood. Clang! Clang! Immediately after, the sound of sword chi clashing echoed through the tsunami, piercing through metal and cracking rocks with a sharp edge. Su Zimo's expression turned grim. Yun Ting's blood chi was way too strong. This was not just a simple tsunami blood. Every single drop of blood in Yun Ting's body contained an extreme killing intent that could destroy the world. Sword blood flowed through Yun Ting's body. It was no exaggeration to say that a single drop of his blood could kill a grade 9 black immortal. The pressure on Su Zimo and Yun Ting increased exponentially. Blood chi surged through the void through Yun Ting's body. Streaks of sword scars appeared on Su Zimo's green robes, and his cheeks were in pain. Before Yun Ting attacked, Su Zimo already felt like he was about to be torn apart and drowned by the blood chi. Sensing that blood chi, the Green Lotus bloodline became restless as well. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo suppressed the Green Lotus bloodline in his body. The creation Green Lotus was the only one in the world and was extremely important. Back then, it even attracted an assassination attempt from an immortal king of the heavenly world. Su Zimo did not dare to be careless. Unless it was a life and death situation, he would definitely not expose his Green Lotus bloodline. "You've lost!" The moment Su Zimo suppressed his bloodline, Yun Ting sensed something and attacked with a bright gaze. That was the terror of top-tier experts. Any slight change could not escape their senses. Su Zimo suppressed his bloodline and his aura naturally weakened. Yun Ting seized the opportunity and released a ferocious attack. Yun Ting closed 2 fingers with both hands and conjured a sword art, as though he was waving 2 swords with a murderous aura. The moment he attacked, dozens of sword lights enveloped Su Zimo completely. After releasing his blood chi, Yun Ting's combat strength increased exponentially, and he almost crushed Su Zimo in a single move. Ah! Chapter 1999 You're Still Young. Chapter 1999 You're Still Young. Initially, Yun Ting had a thought in his heart that he wanted to take Su Zimo under his wing after suppressing the latter. That way, Su Zimo would become a great help to him. But now, he realized that given Su Zimo's capabilities and talent, he would definitely not submit to others. "Let's fight!" Yun Ting's blood chi surged and his sword chi buzzed as he shouted. "Let's see how long you can last against my attacks." His sword finger could penetrate Su Zimo's defense. At the very least, he had the absolute upper hand and the initiative. Furthermore, he had even stronger trump cards that he had yet to use. Once released, those methods would be earth-shaking and apocalyptic. Even he could not control it. The moment he said that, Yunting attacked once more, waving his sword finger towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo was fearless. Relying on the augmentation of the six-tusked divine strength, he leaped up and fought against Yunting. Su Zimo was invincible among his peers in melee combat, and was almost invincible. It was not only because the Green Lotus true body was strong, but also because of his melee combat techniques. It had the toughness of dragons and elephants, the ferocity of tigers and leopards, the nimbleness of apes and snakes, as well as the steadiness of bears and turtles. Those techniques originated from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness and had gone through countless life and death experiences. After comprehending and summarizing, Su Zimo reorganized them, fused them with other brilliant combat skills and mastered them, forming his own unique combat skills. Although those combat skills were derived from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, they were more suitable for Su Zimo than the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness itself. However, against Yunting, Su Zimo could not gain any advantage in melee combat. Although Yunting was restricted and had to use his fingers in place of an actual sword, he could still release countless exquisite sword techniques. Coupled with the sharpness of his sword finger, Yunting was still in control of the situation and had the upper hand. Even so, Yunting was getting more and more alarmed. What sword techniques did he cultivate? Those sword techniques were created by many seniors and sword cultivators of the upper world after countless years of comprehension. Coupled with his sword blood and talent in the Tao of the sword, the power of every sword technique would be magnified when released by him. However, no matter how ferocious his attacks were, they were resolved by Su Zimo's combat techniques one after another. He had never seen any of Su Zimo's combat techniques before. At times, when Su Zimo attacked, it was as though he was possessed by a true dragon, and his strength was unparalleled. However, in the blink of an eye, Su Zimo's aura changed and his movement technique became agile, slithering around him like an ape. Even the sharp sword finger that he relied on the most did not affect Su Zimo much. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had exchanged hundreds of blows. Dozens of wounds appeared on Su Zimo's body from his sword finger. However, Su Zimo's regeneration capabilities were way too strong. Even in such an intense battle, Su Zimo's wounds healed quickly without losing much blood qi. On the contrary, if his attacks weakened slightly, Su Zimo would definitely retaliate in an extremely ferocious manner. There were a few times when he was almost grabbed by Su Zimo's palm. Su Zimo's fingernails were sharp like the claws of a tiger. If it landed on him, there would definitely be 5 bloodied wounds. As time passed by, Yunting became frustrated. Although he was more than 200 years old, he was way too young for the upper world. He had rich cultivation resources, shocking talent, a deep background and noble status. However, he was too young and his mental state was much inferior. Up till this point of his cultivation, Yunting had fought countless battles and encountered many paragons and monster incarnates. He had never been delayed to this extent. However, Su Zimo was unusually calm the entire time. He was in no hurry and his eyes were expressionless. His spirit perception had even sensed the restlessness in Yunting's heart. If one's mental state was unstable, they would definitely reveal some openings. Yunting's heart skipped a beat, and the sharpness of his sword finger merely trembled slightly. Su Zimo sensed it and counterattacked with a bright gaze. "You're still young," Su Zimo said indifferently. His tone sounded like he was lecturing a junior. When Yunting heard that, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. The change in his mental state was way too subtle and could not even be considered as an opening. However, that was enough for Su Zimo. Clang! Clang! The sound of metal clashing echoed. It was Su Zimo's fingernails that collided with Yunting's sword finger, and sparks flew. Su Zimo's fingernails were severed by Yunting's sword finger. Su Zimo's other palm seized the opportunity and passed through the layers of sword shadows, landing heavily on Yunting's chest. Bang! That was the great Chaos Essence palm, and Su Zimo did not hold back. Su Zimo pushed his palm down and frowned slightly. His palm did not strike flesh. Instead, it was cold to the touch. The moment the palm landed, the clothes on Yunting's chest were shattered, revealing a shimmering silver inner armor. Thud! 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 Yunting retreated continuously, and every step he took left a deep footprint on the ground. Chapter 2000 I'm sorry, I want to win. Chapter 2000 I'm sorry, I want to win. After killing the blue-dressed woman, the Zephyr Thunderwings behind Tang Zi flapped wildly and lightning crackled on her body as she dodged to the side. Although she was fast, the middle-aged Taoist was not slow either. Almost at the same time that Tang Zi killed the blue-dressed woman, the middle-aged Taoist's sleeves struck. The sleeves looked elegant and soft, but they suddenly tightened when they descending from the skies like two thick and tough iron rods. While Tang Zi could avoid the fatal blow at the back of her head, she could not avoid the killing move that came from her back. Bang! The sleeves first struck the Zephyr Thunderwings, shattering them before colliding heavily against Tang Zi's back with a dull thud. Tang Zi shuddered and staggered. Opening her mouth slightly, she spat out a mouthful of blood and her face turned incomparably pale. Even so, her expression was extremely calm, as though she could not feel any pain. Both parties were top-tier experts, and the difference in their combat strength was not great to begin with. There was no way she could escape unscathed after forcefully killing one of them against the encirclement of the four of them. The middle-aged Taoist priest used the secret skill, heart-piercing. The power of that attack was extremely terrifying and could even penetrate Tang Zi's back. Tang Zi's reaction was extremely ingenious as well. While she summoned the Zephyr Thunderwings to speed up, the pair of wings blocked a lot of power for her and minimized the damage she suffered. Humph! The middle-aged Taoist priest was not annoyed that he could not kill Tang Zi with a single move. He merely sneered. Let's see how many moves you can last after being struck by my heart-piercing. Tang Zi darted out, and the bald monk and Iron Tower man closed in with murderous auras, not giving her any chance to catch her breath. She was expressionless as she twisted and turned in the encirclement of the three of them, her movement technique clearly slower. In just a few breaths, there were countless dangers and she was almost killed on the spot by the three of them. Although one of the four Paragons was dead, Tang Zi's situation was even more dangerous, and she could die on the spot at any moment. Su Zimo frowned slightly. If he were to attack, he would naturally be able to save Tang Zi. However, that would be equivalent to giving the Jade Talisman to Yunting. A life was at stake. No matter how important the Jade Talisman was, it was just an object. It did not matter if it was given to Yunting. At that thought, Su Zimo made up his mind and was prepared to give up on the Jade Talisman to help Tang Zi. However, the moment he willed it, and before he could do anything, he felt an extremely terrifying aura lock onto him. If he made a single move, he would definitely attract an unimaginably terrifying attack. Against that aura, Su Zimo even had the illusion that he could be sliced into nothingness at any moment. How dare you get distracted in front of me and harbor other thoughts? Yunting's voice sounded. It was calm and contained suppressed anger. It was like the calm before a storm, and the dullness under the thick dark clouds was suffocating. Su Zimo looked at Yunting and could not help but feel shocked. At that moment, Yunting's figure floated slowly and the blood qi in his body surged. It was clear that he had already pushed it to his limits. The blood qi circled around his body and formed blood-colored sword qi that intertwined behind him in a dense manner. Clang! Clang! The blood-colored sword qi trembled continuously, and let out sword hums that intertwined. A gigantic blood-colored sword gradually appeared behind Yunting and soared into the skies. Even the dome of the hall could not conceal its sharpness. The blood-colored sword emitted a destructive aura before it even materialized completely. It was as though nothing in the world across all living beings of the three realms could defend against a single slash from the blood-colored sword. Bloodline phenomenons. That was Yunting's bloodline phenomenon, but it was clear that he had not mastered it completely. That power was way too strong and terrifying. Yunting could not control it at all. Even Su Zimo felt his heart tremble as the green lotus bloodline surged within his body uncontrollably. Once Yunting's bloodline phenomenon was formed, he could only fight it head-on by summoning the bloodline phenomenon of the creation green lotus. Su Zimo's expression turned grim. The bloodline phenomenon conjured by Yunting was enough to kill him. It won't be just a serious injury, but a complete death. Yunting's face was bloodshot, and his body trembled slightly. He was also enduring immense pressure when he channeled his bloodline phenomenon. Up till this point of his cultivation, there had never been a cultivator of the same cultivation realm who could force him to release his bloodline phenomenon. Su Zimo, I admire you very much and can't bear to kill you. Yunting glared at Su Zimo with bloodshot eyes and said slowly. However, at this point of the battle, we have to determine the victor today. I, Yunting, don't want to lose, and I'll definitely not lose. If it was before this, Yunting would definitely obtain the Jade Talisman first before fighting Su Zimo. But now that he was struck by Su Zimo's palm, he would have lost if not for the protection of the Eye-Soul's silver armor. Given his pride and conceit, he could not accept such an outcome. He had already forgotten about the Jade Talisman and the heaven and earth slaying sword arts. Right now, he only had a single thought: to give it his all and use all his strength to defeat Su Zimo. An endless stream of sword chi gathered, and the blood-colored sword became more corporeal. Yunting's long hair danced, and he seemed to be dyed red under the illumination of the blood-colored sword. I haven't fully controlled the power of this bloodline phenomenon yet. Once released, I won't be able to control it either. Yunting lowered his head slightly and whispered, You're most likely going to die. There was a hint of pity in Yunting's tone. It was rare for him to meet an opponent like Su Zimo, and he truly could not bear to kill the latter. Even if he could not subdue him, he would have liked to befriend him. But now, he had no other choice. Pausing for a moment, Yunting seemed to have made up his mind. Raising his head, he looked at Su Zimo and said firmly, I'm sorry, I want to win. Don't worry about me. Right then, Tang Zi's voice sounded. Although she was surrounded by danger, she sensed the commotion on Su Zimo's side. She knew that if Su Zimo was still thinking about her and was distracted, he would definitely die if he could not use his full strength. Hit! Suddenly, the bald monk hollered. Bang! Although Tang Zi tried her best to dodge, she was still punched on the shoulder by the bald monk. Crack! 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 The sound of bones cracking was extremely terrifying. Tang Zi's shoulder was shattered by a single punch from the bald monk, and her entire arm could not move. Hee hee, how dare you send a voice transmission to your little lover in the midst of our encirclement? The bald monk gave a strange laugh, and his attacks turned sharper. Tang Zi was severely injured by the middle-aged Taoist, and her strength was greatly reduced. She was struggling against the encirclement of the three of them. Now that her arm was crippled by the bald monk, the situation was turning increasingly dangerous, and her life was hanging by a thread. Su Zimo glanced at Tang Zi and retracted his gaze. He then looked at Yunting and said indifferently, I'm sorry, you can't win. Chapter 2001 Essence Spirit Sword Condensation. Chapter 2001 Essence Spirit Sword Condensation. For Su Zimo, activating his bloodline and releasing his bloodline phenomenon to fight Yunting head-on was naturally the simplest and most direct solution. Furthermore, he believed that with the augmentation of the six-tusked divine elephant divine power, the creation green lotus phenomenon could definitely defeat Yunting's blood sword phenomenon. However, that would merely be a defeat. Su Zimo did not have the confidence to kill a prince. That was because he did not know how many trump cards and treasures Yunting had. If he could not kill Yunting, the creation green lotus would be exposed. Su Zimo had not known Yunting for long. Although this person was proud and conceited, he was honest right from the beginning and did not have any sinister thoughts. However, Su Zimo did not dare to take the gamble. Nobody knew better than him what sort of killing intent the creation Green Lotus would attract if it was exposed. The scene of his ascension often flashed through his mind, and he still had lingering fear. King Yunyu was not the only one attracted by the creation Green Lotus. There were other Immortal King experts as well. Given Su Zimo's current cultivation, he could not withstand a second similar attack. Of course, even without releasing his bloodline phenomenon, he had other methods. Those methods were even more intense and berserk. Su Zimo's gaze was deep and his glabella shone, releasing an extremely terrifying spirit consciousness fluctuation. Essence spirit attack? Sensing something amiss, Yunting guessed Su Zimo's thoughts instantly. However, he did not take it to heart and merely shook his head gently. It's not a bad idea to use an essence spirit secret skill. However, you're still way too naive. I sensed long ago that your essence spirit realm has already reached the Earth Immortal realm. However, you might not know that my essence spirit realm has long broken through to the Earth Immortal realm as well. The moment he said that, Yunting no longer hid and released a tremendous spirit consciousness pressure as well. Level 2 Earth Essence Realm. Essence spirits were the most difficult to cultivate. In the upper world, it was almost impossible for essence spirit cultivation to surpass personal cultivation. Anyone who could surpass a minor personal cultivation realm was already a peerless monster incarnate. There were not many people in the entire Divine Firmament Immortal domain who could surpass 2 minor realms like Yunting. The main reason why Su Zimo could do that was because his essence spirit was formed by the power of the Green Lotus and Dragon Phoenix essence spirits combined with the power of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. Right now, he was a grade 9 Black Immortal and his essence spirit cultivation was also at the level 2 Earth Essence realm. However, with the augmentation of the 6-tusked Divine Elephant, the power of his essence spirit, body and bloodline increased by 4 times. Although his essence spirit cultivation did not change much, the power of his essence spirit was already equivalent to the level 3 Earth Essence realm. Naturally, Yunting could sense the difference. However, he was in no hurry. Yunting smiled faintly. Indeed, the power of your essence spirit is superior to mine. However, you'll still lose if you fight with your essence spirit. That's because no one can defend against my essence spirit sword. Yunting's tone revealed immense confidence. Is that so? Su Zimo's expression was calm and unmoved. A palm-sized scarlet dragon scale slowly floated out from his glabella. It was in the shape of a crescent, and was filled with a terrifying aura. Essence Spirit Secret Skill, Reverse Scale. The moment the reverse scale appeared, the entire hall seemed to have frozen. Only the dragon scale floated slowly towards Yunting, emitting a shuddering energy fluctuation. It was as though any power that made contact with the dragon scale would suffer a destructive impact. Even the middle-aged Taoist priest and the other 2 who were attacking Tang Zi revealed wary expressions and retracted their spirit consciousnesses, afraid that they would attract the killing power of the dragon scale. Good. Yunting had a fearless expression as he nodded repeatedly and shouted, Since you want to fight with your essence spirit, I'll let you undertake a complete loss today. His glabella opened up and a sword hovered in his consciousness where his essence spirit was. Essence Spirit Sword. Su Zimo focused his gaze. The essence spirits of any living being were born from their bodies and were not much different from their true forms. Yunting was a human, but his essence spirit was a sword. Su Zimo had only seen such a situation in one person. That was his eldest disciple, Baiming Shui. Baiming Shui's essence spirit, her martial spirit, was a sword. His eldest disciple's talent in the Tao of the sword was unparalleled. But now, Su Zimo saw a second person with an essence spirit sword. Slay! Yunting pointed forward and hollered softly. Swoosh! In his consciousness, Yunting's essence spirit sword released a blood-colored sword beam that was extremely sharp as it slashed towards the reverse scale. The 2 essence spirit secret skills collided instantly without any commotion or sound. However, the moment they collided, Su Zimo and Yunting felt their hearts skip a beat. The blood-colored blade penetrated the reverse scale and descended in Su Zimo's consciousness instantly, slashing towards the green lotus essence spirit. Poof! 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 Sensing danger, rays of light spewed out from the 81 lotus holes. The 81 green lotus seeds seemed to have condensed into long swords that struck the blood-colored blade repeatedly. Finally, they dissipated and the green lotus essence spirit was not injured at all. On the other side, Yunting's essence spirit sword felt a strange power augmenting his body, and he could not dodge at all. Bang! The essence spirit sword trembled violently before shattering, revealing a tiny essence spirit that shone with silver light. It resembled Yunting and retreated a few steps in a flustered manner. When he saw that, Su Zimo was enlightened. Yunting's essence spirit sword had not been cultivated to its limits, and his essence spirit had not transformed into a sword completely. Now that it was exposed to the power of the reverse scale, its true form was revealed. At the same time, Su Zimo was secretly alarmed. Anyone who touched the reverse scale of a dragon would die. Up till this point of his cultivation, the only person of the same cultivation realm who could defend against the reverse scale was Yunting. While defending against the reverse scale, the sharpness of Yunting's essence spirit sword descended in his consciousness and threatened his essence spirit. If not for the creation lotus platform, it would have been difficult for his essence spirit to escape unscathed against that sharpness. Actually, Su Zimo knew very well that in terms of the power of essence spirit secret skills, Yunting's blood-colored blade was superior to the reverse scale. However, the power of his essence spirit was a realm above Yunting. Furthermore, Yunting's attempt to dispel the formation at the entrance of the main hall had taken a huge toll on his essence spirit. Under such circumstances, the two of them merely fought to a draw. Su Zimo was merely surprised. However, Yunting was shocked and his heart surged. How was that possible? His essence spirit sword, the blood-colored blade, had failed? What treasure was in Su Zimo's consciousness that could neutralize his blood-colored blade? A fight between essence spirits was way too dangerous. Notwithstanding the fact that his essence spirit sword returned fruitless, even his essence spirit was shaken out of its true form by the dragon scale. Yunting was truly shocked by this essence spirit fight. He had not realized that the true terror was yet to come. Chapter 2002 Massive Explosion. Chapter 2002 Massive Explosion. Yunting's essence spirit was shaken out of his true form. For a moment, his thoughts were in a mess and he could not react. Under normal circumstances, his bloodline phenomenon should have been formed by now. However, because of the fight between the essence spirit secret skills, his essence spirit was shaken as well, causing the blood-colored sword behind him to sway slightly without materializing completely. Yunting shook his head, as though he wanted to cast his thoughts aside. No matter what, as long as he could condense his bloodline phenomenon, Su Zimo would definitely lose. The moment that thought crossed his mind, Yunting felt a strange energy fluctuation and his expression changed. Yunting's eyes widened and he looked towards Su Zimo instinctively. Another essence spirit secret skill? Under normal circumstances, ordinary cultivators would only cultivate an essence spirit secret skill at most. That was because even if one cultivated many essence spirit secret skills, it was rare for them to have the chance to release a second one in a battle. The requirement of releasing 2 essence spirit secret skills in succession was way too high. If one's essence spirit was not condensed enough and released 2 secret skills in succession, their essence spirit would collapse before they could kill their opponents. Naturally, Yunting cultivated more than one essence spirit secret skill. But now, he had expended a lot of power of his essence spirit to dispel the formation outside the main hall. Thereafter, after the clash with Su Zimo's reverse scale, his essence spirit became extremely weak. Even if he wanted to, he was powerless. Yunting was secretly frustrated when he saw Su Zimo condense a second essence spirit secret skill. If he had known earlier, he would have been more cautious in front of the main hall and not been in a hurry to dispel the formation. When he was dispelling the formation, he truly had not expected that someone of the same cultivation realm could force him to such an extent. Su Zimo conjured hand seals repeatedly, and the spirit consciousness fluctuation in his glabella intensified. Thereafter, he extended his finger and touched his glabella gently. Crackle! Accompanied by a series of sounds, Su Zimo withdrew a blinding thunder whip from his glabella and it danced wildly in midair. Spirit vanquishing whip. Although Tang Zi was surrounded, her heart skipped a beat when she saw that from the corner of her eye. That was an essence spirit secret skill of the Void Thunder Manual. How did this person know it? Was he also someone from Remnant Night, and had obtained her father's legacy? The spirit vanquishing whip was filled with lightning and emanated a terrifying aura. Even a body of flesh and blood could be whipped into ashes, let alone an essence spirit. Against Su Zimo's second essence spirit secret skill, Yun Ting regained his composure rapidly without any fear in his eyes. If I hadn't expended a lot of essence spirit power to dispel the formation previously, I would be able to dispel this essence spirit secret skill as well, Yun Ting said proudly. Su Zimo did not reply. His eyes seemed to contain thunder as he whipped Yun Ting with the spirit vanquishing whip. Piak! When the spirit vanquishing whip struck Yun Ting, it suddenly vanished. In Yun Ting's consciousness, a whip made of lightning appeared and coiled around his essence spirit rapidly. Lightning flashed and electric arcs spun in a blinding manner. Initially, the spirit vanquishing whip of the lower worlds did not have such changes and power. However, in the 10 Absolute Hell, Su Zimo obtained the inheritance of the Thunder Emperor, and this essence spirit secret skill evolved as well. It underwent a complete transformation and was even more lethal. Under normal circumstances, any essence spirit that was coiled by the spirit vanquishing whip could not survive and would have been destroyed a long time ago. However, Yun Ting's essence spirit was not injured at all. Ha ha! Yun Ting's laughter sounded. Although it was a little hoarse, he was still proud and confident. Su Zimo, even a second essence spirit secret skill won't be able to hurt me. Actually, Su Zimo had already noticed something unusual when the reverse scales shook Yun Ting's essence spirit out of its true form. Silver light shone on Yun Ting's essence spirit, as though he was wearing silver armor. It was similar to the I-Soul silver armor he was wearing, as though there was a connection. In reality, Su Zimo was not wrong. The I-Soul silver armor was divided into 2 inner and outer armor. Both came from the same person, and the outer armor protected Yun Ting's body while the inner armor protected his essence spirit. There were many types of dermic treasures that could protect the body. However, dermic treasures that could protect the essence spirit were way too difficult to refine, and every single one of them was priceless. That was the value of the I-Soul silver armor. With the I-Soul silver armor, even Earth Immortal experts would have difficulty killing Yun Ting, let alone Black Immortals. Therefore, Su Zimo did not pause at all after condensing the spirit vanquishing whip and channeled his essence spirit once more. If one essence spirit secret skill was not enough, he would use 2. If 2 were not enough, he would use 3. Sanskrit sounded in Su Zimo's mind, as though Buddhas were chanting softly in a majestic manner. His glabella opened once more and a golden Sanskrit word appeared, shining with a Buddhist light that illuminated the void. It crushed towards Yun Ting as though it was extremely heavy. The Gautama Dermic Seal. The Gautama Dermic Seal was an essence spirit secret skill from a cultivation technique of the lower worlds, the Great Day Gautama Sutra. Now that it was in the upper world, this essence spirit secret skill became extremely ordinary. However, because of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, all the Buddhist cultivation techniques that Su Zimo cultivated underwent a transformation and were augmented by dermic powers. The Gautama Dermic Seal transformed as well. Yun Ting's expression changed starkly as disbelief filled his eyes. Even with the condensation of his essence spirit, he could only release 2 essence spirit secret skills in succession. However, Su Zimo, who had ascended from the lower worlds, could release 3. What was that person's essence spirit made of? How was that possible? Only Su Zimo knew that it was all thanks to the Green Lotus essence spirit. In Tianhuang mainland, Su Zimo even released dozens of dermic arts in succession with the help of his green lotus essence spirit. Right now, Su Zimo released 3 essence spirit secret skills in succession, shocking the world and attacking Yun Ting's essence spirit. In Yun Ting's consciousness, the I's soul inner armor appeared to defend against the power of thunder of the spirit vanquishing whip. At the same time, the Gautama dermic seal descended, and Yun Ting's essence spirit could not dodge at all. The spirit vanquishing whip or Gautama dermic seal alone was enough could kill a grade 9 black immortal. Right now, the power of the 2 essence spirit secret skills was augmented on Yun Ting's essence spirit at the same time. Ah! Yun Ting hugged his head with both hands with a pained expression. Even with the protection of the I soul inner armor, his essence spirit suffered an immense shock. Cracks even appeared on the I soul inner armor. Crack! 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 A chilling intent burst forth from the cracks of the I soul inner armor. The lightning on the spirit vanquishing whip froze. The Gautama dermic seal was filled with frost as well. The lights of the 2 essence spirit secret skills dimmed rapidly. In the end, the 2 essence spirit secret skills could not break through the I soul inner armor. Fufufu! Yun Ting grinned and grit his teeth, gradually regaining his senses. His eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Su Zimo and said slowly, "You still failed." "No." Su Zimo conjured hand seals with both hands and looked at Yun Ting, saying indifferently, "To begin with, I didn't expect those 3 essence spirit secret skills to kill you." "Then why?" Yun Ting was about to ask when he could not continue. That was because the blood-colored sword behind him was dissipating rapidly. Although his essence spirit was intact under the protection of the I soul inner armor, it was still shaken violently, and his bloodline phenomenon dissipated as his blood chi fluctuated. Chapter 2003, Incinerating Flames. Chapter 2003, Incinerating Flames. Yun Ting was a rare paragon in the divine firmament immortal domain. When he saw the bloodline phenomenon behind him dissipate, he realized Su Zimo's motive. On the surface, Su Zimo released 3 essence spirit secret skills in succession to target his essence spirit, but in reality, it was to destroy his bloodline phenomenon. Naturally, Yun Ting had other trump cards. However, he could not use dermic treasures in the Emperor's tomb, and those powerful methods could not be used. Now that his bloodline phenomenon was dispelled, it meant that he could no longer threaten Su Zimo. Of course, both of them had expended a lot of energy up till this point of the battle, and Su Zimo released 3 essence spirit secret skills in succession. Yun Ting believed that Su Zimo was already at the end of the road and could not threaten him with his trump cards used. Something's not right! Right then, an image flashed through Yun Ting's mind and he was shocked. Suddenly, he recalled that after Su Zimo released the 3 essence spirit secret skills, his fingers were still changing continuously as he conjured a dermic art. Yun Ting focused his gaze hurriedly and felt that the light before him was a little blinding. The temperature in the hall rose suddenly. 4 balls of flames of different colors rose beside Su Zimo. Golden, black, milky white, and scarlet. Although the 4 balls of flames were only the size of a fist, they emitted a violent heat that burned away the surrounding heaven and earth essence chi. "You can still." Yun Ting clenched his fists and looked at everything in disbelief. Initially, he thought that releasing 3 essence spirit secret skills in succession was Su Zimo's limit. To think that Su Zimo's essence spirit could even channel spirit consciousness and gather essence chi to condense such a powerful immortal art secret skill. The auras released by each of the 4 balls of flames were completely different. The golden flame Dharma characteristic was dignified and there seemed to be an ancient Buddha sitting cross-D within. However, the black flame was sinister and filled with fiend chi. As for the milky white flame, it was even stranger. There seemed to be the faint sound of phoenixes. Even with Yun Ting's experience, he had never heard of such an immortal art or secret skill. Su Zimo stood in midair with 2 balls of flames burning in his eyes. The heatwave surged as though it wanted to devour Yun Ting and burn him to ashes. At that moment, Suzumo's aura had already overwhelmed Yunting completely. On the other side, the middle-aged Taoist and the others were shocked as well. Even they had not expected the battle between the two monster incarnates to reach such an extent. Furthermore, it was an immortal from the lower worlds who had the upper hand. Yunting felt suffocated and uncomfortable against Suzumo's aura. However, he still straightened his back and raised his head. There was no fear in his eyes as he shouted, "Suzumo, you can't defeat me with your methods!" Yunting had the eye-soul inner armor to protect his essence spirit, and outer armor to protect his body. Indeed, ordinary methods could not hurt him. Even if he could not win today, he would definitely not lose. "Is that so?" Suzumo did not argue and merely said indifferently, "That's good as well. I'll teach you a lesson today." Before his sentence was finished, Suzumo's hand seals changed once more. The immortal Tao fire, Buddhist Tao fire, Fiend Tao fire and the milky white southern Mingli fire transformed into 4 flames that sped towards Yunting. When they were still in midair, the 4 balls of flames fused together, as though they were drawn in by some power, forming a gigantic fireball. Each of the 4 balls of flames released individually could not threaten Yunting. However, after the 4 balls of flames fused, the secret skill transformed completely, and its power increased exponentially. Yunting had a grim expression as he glared at the gigantic fireball that was speeding over. He began to activate his eye-soul silver armor, and his body was covered in a layer of frost. Although the fireball was powerful, the power of the eye-soul silver armor could definitely defend against it. Right then, another flame burst forth from Suzumo's glabella. Essence Spirit Tao Fire. Suzumo's essence spirit was already extremely weak. When released, the essence spirit fire did not have much power. However, when it landed in the fireball, the secret skill underwent another transformation and turned into the Pankati Tao fire. The flames of the fireball intensified and expanded once more, devouring towards Yunting like a red sun. Yunting was shocked. He had not expected that the power of the fireball would increase to another level the moment it was about to descend. He could even sense the aura of death. Phew! The Pankati Tao fire howled and devoured Yunting in the blink of an eye. The temperature in the hall had already climbed to a terrifying level. The middle-aged Taoist and the others who were fighting at the side were drenched in sweat as well. The 3 of them exchanged shocked glances. If that Tao fire was released towards them, they would be burned to ashes instantly even if they had 10 lives. Chapter 2004 Slain Paragon. Chapter 2004 Slain Paragon. When he saw that, Suzumo's heart skipped a beat and he was on guard. Yunting noticed the change in the eye-soul silver armor and seemed to have realized something. His expression changed as well as he shouted anxiously, "Sister, I haven't lost yet. I don't want to go back." Nobody replied. However, the shards of the eye-soul silver armor collided rapidly and formed a pitch-black tunnel on Yunting's body. It was filled with a powerful suction force and wanted to take him away from the Emperor's tomb. A spatial tunnel. Yunting wanted to struggle, but he could not defend against the power of the spatial tunnel behind him. His body was gradually devoured by the tunnel, but he still glared at Suzumo indignantly. If he had not expended too much of his essence spirit to dispel the formation previously, he would not have been so passive in the essence spirit fight earlier on. The bloodline phenomenon behind him would not be destroyed by Suzumo. Earlier on, he would not have been reduced to such a sorry state. A single mistake had led to countless more. "Suzumo, it's difficult for me to unleash my combat strength to its peak in this Emperor's tomb, and you've got the upper hand. However, don't be smug. You didn't win at all. If we continue fighting, it's still unknown who will win." Yunting's figure almost vanished into the spatial tunnel and only his intermittent voice could be heard. "Suzumo, I'll remember you. I hope that you can cultivate as soon as possible. Don't fall too far behind me. In the future, victory between us will be determined." The void closed and the spatial tunnel vanished. Yunting had already left the Emperor's tomb. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that. Thankfully, Yunting's sister used some secret skill to bring him back. If the battle were to continue, Su Zimo would not be able to hide the secret of his green lotus true body any longer. A look of fatigue appeared on Su Zimo's face. Releasing 3 Essence Spirit secret skills in succession, and the release of the Pankati Dao fire was also a huge drain on his Essence Spirit. If not for the fact that the Green Lotus and Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirits had fused and he cultivated the Prajna Nirvana Sutra to temper his Essence Spirit, he would not have been able to do it given his previous Essence Spirit condensation level. With Yunting's departure, the Jade Talisman was within Su Zimo's reach. However, he did not choose to take the Jade Talisman first. Instead, he turned around and charged towards another battlefield. On the other side, Tang Zi was on the brink of death. Su Zimo fought against Yunting and the 3 of them attacked Tang Zi like a storm without stopping. Tang Zi's shoulder was shattered and she had more than 10 wounds on her body. Fresh blood flowed and one of her legs was broken. She staggered and could die at any moment. However, Tang Zi pursed her lips expressionlessly. Even though she was in immense pain, she did not make a single sound the entire time. She knew in her heart that the battle between Su Zimo and Yunting was a fight between the top monster incarnates, and there was no room for mistakes. If she cried out in pain, Su Zimo would definitely be distracted and there was a high chance he would be killed by Yunting on the spot. Tang Zi felt her head spin and her vision blurred. She truly could not hold on any longer. Scram! Right then, a furious roar sounded like thunder in her ears, containing a calming power. She was invigorated and gradually regained clarity. It was as though a spring breeze had blown past her essence spirit, and her consciousness was filled with warm sunlight. Su Zimo made use of the power of the Buddhist Tao to roar in a deafening manner. However, Su Zimo's essence spirit was weak at the moment, and the effect of the roar was extremely limited, only able to wake Tang Zi up temporarily. Bang! 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 Su Zimo roared and charged into the battlefield. Raising his arms and legs, he fought against the 3 paragons, the bald monk, the Iron Tower man and the middle-aged Taoist, causing the sound of flesh clashing to echo. The 3 paragons were repelled by Su Zimo. The 3 of them exchanged glances. All of them could see the fear in the other's eyes. Su Zimo had released all his trump cards in such a tragic battle against Yunting, but he still had the strength to fight them head-on. Actually, at that moment, Su Zimo was already at the end of his road. After ascending, there had never been a cultivator of the same cultivation realm who could force him to such an extent. Even so, he could suppress most grade 9 black immortals with his green lotus true body. His essence spirit is weak. Attack his essence spirit! The middle-aged Taoist's expression changed as he quickly saw through Su Zimo's weakness and hollered. In reality, that was the case as well. Su Zimo's essence spirit was extremely weak after activating 3 essence spirit secret skills in succession and releasing the Pankati Dao fire. He could no longer use any essence spirit secret skills. Kill! The middle-aged Taoist's glabella shone and released a violent spirit consciousness fluctuation. He was the first to condense an essence spirit secret skill and charge towards Su Zimo. You must have a death wish! Su Zimo's expression turned cold. Although he could not use his essence spirit secret skill, he had other killing moves. In his consciousness, the creation lotus platform spun slowly, and the 81 green lotus seeds transformed into rays of light that rapidly formed a sharp sword that tore through his glabella and sped forward. It was a killing technique targeted at the essence spirit, the green lotus sword. Chi! With a flash of green light, the sharpness of the green lotus sword sliced the middle-aged Taoist's essence spirit secret skill into 2 before killing him. The middle-aged Taoist's expression changed starkly. Sensing the sharpness of the green lotus sword, he turned and fled without hesitation. However, no matter how fast he could not be faster than the green lotus sword. Before long, the green lotus sword entered the back of the middle-aged Taoist's head and penetrated his consciousness. It flew out from his glabella and scattered into green lotus seeds before returning to Su Zimo's consciousness. The green lotus seeds were dim, and their power was exhausted after defending against the blood-colored blade and killing the middle-aged Taoist's essence spirit. They required a period of nourishment in the creation lotus platform to recover to their original state. However, the bald monk and the Iron Tower man did not know about the changes. The two of them had initially conjured essence spirit secret skills as well. Before they could release them, the middle-aged Taoist was killed by the green lotus sword. The two of them were so scared that they dispersed their essence spirit secret skills hurriedly, afraid that they would attract the killing power of the green lotus sword. "Monk, stop holding back!" Suddenly, the Iron Tower man grinned and a cunning look flashed across his honest face. "At this point, if we continue to hold back, we'll probably be killed by this person." "That's right." The bald monk nodded as well. "Since that's the case, let's join forces and kill this person first before we determine who the Jade Talisman belongs to." Tang Zi frowned slightly. She had not expected the bald monk and the Iron Tower man to be holding back. But soon, she understood. On the surface, the four paragons worked together in harmony. However, the four of them were also scheming against one another. The reason why the bald monk and Iron Tower man held back was definitely because they wanted to catch one another off guard during the final fight for the Jade Talisman. When she attacked the blue-dressed woman, the two of them were far away and did not arrive in time. Now that she thought about it, they might have done it intentionally to make use of her to get rid of another competitor. However, either of them had expected that Su Zimo's strength was unfathomable. If they held back any longer, they would all die here. Chapter 2005, Settled Dust. Chapter 2005, Settled Dust. The bloodlines of the bald monk and the Iron Tower man surged, and the sound of a tsunami could be heard as their power of blood chi was pushed to its limits. An ancient bell appeared behind the bald monk. It shone with a golden light and was filled with runes that emanated a terrifying aura. A towering mountain appeared behind the Iron Tower man, seemingly able to suppress all living beings with a shocking might. Bloodline phenomenon. Both the bald monk and the Iron Tower man had robust blood chi and shocking physiques. They were strong in melee combat and had cultivated bloodline phenomenons. However, the two of them held back the entire time. It was only after Su Zimo killed the middle-aged Taoist that the two of them realized that they might be killed by him if they continued holding back. "Su Zimo, you're already at the end of the road. Don't force yourself." The bald monk was also a monster incarnate, and could naturally tell Su Zimo's strength. If it was anyone else, they would not hold back during a battle of that level with Yunting. They must have used up all their trump cards. "Don't waste your breath on him. Let's kill him first lest anything else happens," the Iron Tower man said in a deep voice. "Ha ha!" Su Zimo reared his head in laughter, as though he had heard the funniest thing in the world. "The two of you think you can kill me?" Su Zimo glared at the two of them with a disdainful expression and said slowly, "I can't kill Yunting, but you think I can't kill you guys?" The reason why he did not use the bloodline of his green lotus true body the entire time was because he was worried that it would be exposed. That was because he was not confident that he could keep Yunting in the Emperor's tomb. In reality, as Su Zimo had expected, Yunting indeed had a trump card. There were even other experts guarding him, and he was taken away from the Emperor's tomb. However, it was different for the bald monk and the Iron Tower man. Although they were from the four immortal sects, their statuses were worlds apart compared to Yunting. Even grade 9 black immortals and rare paragons were merely servants in the four immortal sections. They did not have dermic treasures like the Eye Soul silver armor, nor any experts leaving behind trump cards to protect them. The moment Su Zimo said that, his killing intent was already triggered. When the bald monk and the Iron Tower man saw how calm Su Zimo was and how fearless he seemed, they felt uneasy. However, now that the two of them had already released their bloodline phenomenons, they were in a difficult position. Furthermore, the Jade Talisman was right before them. Were the two of them going to give up the Jade Talisman without fighting? At that thought, the two of them exchanged glances and made the same decision. They were going to attack with all their might without holding back. As long as they could kill Suzimo, Tang Zi would not be a threat. Kill! The Bulb Monk and Iron Tower Man roared at the same time and released their bloodline phenomenons, charging towards Suzimo with sharp gazes and killing intent. Bloodline phenomenon? Suzimo murmured softly with an indifferent expression. He merely glanced casually at the bloodline phenomenon behind the Bulb Monk and the Iron Tower Man before retracting his gaze. Splash! The sound of a tsunami echoed from Suzimo's body as well. It was even stronger than the two of them and was deafening. It was as though a galaxy had poured down from the 9 heavens and smashed onto the ground with a deafening bang. Immediately after, a jade green lotus grew behind Suzimo. The lotus leaves were wide and its stem was upright. The flower bud at the top trembled slightly, and could blossom at any moment. This is... The eyes of the Bulb Monk and the Iron Tower Man widened as they looked up at the green lotus in shock. Both of them felt an unimaginable pressure. Against the green lotus, the two of them felt incomparably tiny, as though they could not even compare to a single lotus leaf on the green lotus. The green lotus soared into the skies and was filled with a chaotic aura. The flower bud lowered its head slightly, as though it was looking down at them. The bloodline phenomenons behind the two of them began to sway and show signs of dissipating. That seems to be the creation green lotus. The Bulb Monk's voice trembled with a shocked expression. Tang Zi was shocked as well. Although she had seen Suzimo conjure the green lotus, she did not recognize its origin. The creation green lotus was the only one in the world. Even immortal kings would not let go of such an utmost treasure. Right then, the flower bud on the green lotus suddenly blossomed and spilled endless light. The green lotus swayed gently, seemingly excited. The creation green lotus did not sway much and was almost imperceptible. However, that slight movement caused the two bloodline phenomenons behind the Bulb Monk and the Iron Tower Man to collapse, turning into endless blood chi that dissipated into the world. The two of them shuddered as though they were struck by lightning, and blood oozed from the corners of their mouths. Escape! Without hesitation, the two of them turned and fled. Suzimo sneered and his green lotus phenomenon shone brightly. Strange lights spread like sharp swords and pierced the two of them instantly. Thump! The two of them fell to the ground and were riddled with holes as blood gushed out, dying on the spot. After doing that, Suzimo heaved a sigh of relief. With their deaths, there was no chance of the green lotus true body being exposed. The battle was over and the dust had settled. Suzimo relaxed and actually felt a little dizzy. His body swayed slightly and the green lotus phenomenon could not hold on either, and dissipated rapidly. He was almost completely exhausted from the battle. If not for the fact that the green lotus true body had shocking regeneration capabilities, he would have collapsed a long time ago. It's over? Tang Zi looked at the messy battlefield in disbelief. At this point of the battle, apart from the two of them, there was no one else alive in the main hall, leaving only corpses on the ground. Tang Zi took out a few immortal herbs and consumed them, recovering her injuries and stamina slowly. Given her physique and bloodline, she would be able to recover her mobility quickly as long as she had time to rest and recuperate. Hurry and get that jade talisman and tidy up the battlefield. We'll leave this place before anything else happens, Tang Zi urged. For some reason, she had an indescribable feeling. It was like a whim, or an assassin's sixth sense, as though something bad was about to happen. Suzimo nodded and took a deep breath. Leaping up, he grabbed the jade talisman in his palm. There were no other changes throughout the entire process. Suzimo stared at the jade talisman for a moment, and scanned it carefully with his spirit consciousness, but he could not find anything. What's the secret behind this jade talisman that attracted so many sects, factions and paragons to fight for it? Suzimo asked with a frown. I don't know either, Tang Zi said. I reckon that apart from Yunting and a few other cultivators who entered the Emperor's tomb, most of them don't know the secret of the jade talisman. The only thing that could be certain was that this jade talisman was related to the immortal Emperor buried in the Emperor's tomb. Chapter 2006 Library. Chapter 2006 Library. Divine Firmament Mainland, Xuan Immortal Kingdom. Capital, Palace Library. The city walls of the capital were thousands of feet tall. The library was 90,000 feet tall and was the most striking building in the capital. It was also one of the emblems of the entire Xuan Immortal Kingdom. Apart from Divine Firmament Palace, the library of the Xuan Immortal Kingdom was the second tallest building in the entire Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. The library was all-encompassing and involved cultivation techniques, secret skills, dermic treasures, elixirs, tempering, various regions, trichiliocosm, ancient ruins, legends. It contained everything. There had long been rumors in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain that the library of the Xuan Immortal Kingdom was the place with the most books in the Nine Firmament Immortal Domain, and even the entire heavenly world. Standing on the top floor of the library, one could see the endless capital of the Xuan Immortal Kingdom and the mountains and rivers. At that moment, a woman stood on the top floor of the library. Her long hair was tied up with a ribbon and draped casually behind her back. She wore a faint green dress that revealed her slender figure perfectly. A gentle breeze blew, sweeping a few strands of black hair across the woman's face. The woman was oblivious to it, and continued looking down at an ancient book in her hands with a focused expression, as though she was completely immersed in it. Although she was only wearing plain clothes, her beauty surpassed all the other makeup in the world. Even though she was motionless, she exuded a refined and noble aura. The woman held a scroll and stood against the wind. Her skirt fluttered gently in a graceful and beautiful manner, as though she was one with the entire library. Suddenly, a strange energy fluctuation came from an empty space on the top floor. Immediately after, the void collapsed, revealing a dark spatial tunnel. As though she did not notice it, the woman looked at the book in her hands intently. A moment later, a black figure fell out of the spatial tunnel and landed on the top floor in a sorry state. The spatial tunnel behind him closed and vanished. That figure was Yunting, who was brought back from the Emperor's tomb. The woman did not turn back and was still focused on the book in her hands, as though there was nothing in the world that could attract her attention or look better than the words in the book. "Sister!" Yunting stood up and clenched his fists, shouting in the direction of the woman with an indignant expression. When she heard that voice, the woman was in a daze. She paused for a moment before reacting. Frowning slightly, she said with her back facing Yunting, "Since you're back, return to the residence and cultivate in peace." When Yunting saw that the woman did not seem to care about him at all, he felt even more aggrieved and indignant. He took a few steps forward and shouted again, "Sister, I didn't lose at all. Why did you bring me back?" "You didn't lose?" The woman still did not look at Yunting as she shook her head. "The Ice Soul silver armor that I gave you is crippled both internally and externally. Yet you claim that you didn't lose?" Yunting argued. "So what if they were crippled? I wasn't severely injured nor hurt. If not for the Ice Soul silver armor, would you have been able to return alive?" The woman's tone was cold and stern. Yunting was still indignant and shouted, "A dermic treasure is also a part of one's strength. Which rule states that dermic treasures are not allowed in a life and death battle? If you hadn't brought me back, I would have definitely defeated that person and helped you get your Jade Talisman." When she heard that, the woman was touched. A gentle look flashed through her eyes as she finally turned around and looked at Yunting. Just as the woman was about to speak, she could not help but laugh when she saw Yunting. The woman's smile was charming, and instantly, the surrounding skies seemed to brighten up. At that moment, Yunting was covered in dust. His clothes were burned and his hair was thin. His cheeks were pitch black like a black fire rod. "Sister, how dare you laugh at me?" Instantly, Yunting panicked and his face flushed red. However, it could not be seen clearly beneath his charcoal black skin. This younger brother of hers was a prince of the Xuan Immortal Kingdom, and a peerless monster incarnate, who was invincible among his peers. He had never been in such a sorry state. All of this was because Yunting wanted to fight for the Jade Talisman for her. At that thought, the woman's gaze softened. She put down the book in her hands and walked forward slowly, raising her hand to brush Yunting's cheek gently. A faint white light appeared on the woman's fingertip. The white light circulated around Yunting's body and washed away the charcoal on his body in the blink of an eye. Some of Yunting's wounds began to heal as well. The woman took out a long dress and draped it on Yunting, saying gently, "I guess that you sneaked into the Emperor's tomb because of me. However, you're not allowed to do this in the future. Father doesn't have many descendants and you're the youngest and most talented. If anything happens to you, he'll be heartbroken. Furthermore, among these siblings, you're the one I like the most." Yunting lowered his head slightly and mumbled, "I know. You and Father have taken care of me since I was young. However, I've never ever given you a gift." In front of the woman, Yunting no longer had the cold and arrogant aura as he did in the Emperor's tomb. Instead, he became more obedient and revealed the demeanor of a child from time to time. After all, he was only 200 years old, equivalent to 3 or 4 years old among mortals. Of course, Yunting would only reveal such childish naivety in front of this woman. In front of outsiders, even his father and other brothers, he was also Prince Yunting, a rare paragon who looked down on the world. When Yunting lost his mother when he was young, apart from his father, his sister was the only one who accompanied him when he was young. In his heart, his sister was the closest person to him. Otherwise, he would not have ventured deep into the danger zone to retrieve the Jade Talisman personally as a gift for his sister. Yunting said, "You've always liked to study, sister. I heard that this Jade Talisman is related to a taboo mystic classic and wanted to help you get it. It's just a connection. Even if you can obtain the Jade Talisman, you might not be able to obtain the taboo mystic classic. This Jade Talisman is truly not worth the risk." The woman looked at Yunting and said softly, "Even a true taboo mystic classic is less than 1,000th of you, let alone a Jade Talisman." "Sister!" Yunting called out softly with teary eyes. "You're still crying even though you're already so old." The woman smiled. "Who's crying?" Yunting blushed and pulled up his sleeves to wipe his eyes messily. He said angrily, "Sister, even if you didn't bring me back, that person won't be able to hurt me." He felt even more indignant at the thought of Suzimo. "That person could even cripple the Soul silver armor I gave you. How do you know he doesn't have other trump cards?" The woman asked instead. "Definitely not," Yunting blurted. However, his tone softened quickly as he muttered, "That person is only a grade 9 black immortal. He must be at the end of his road after releasing 3 essence spirit secret skills and a powerful secret skill in succession. He shouldn't have any other methods." The woman frowned slightly before reacting and asking, "You mean to say that you were defeated by a single person? A black immortal at that?" Chapter 2007 Infinite Era. Chapter 2007 Infinite Era. The woman knew Yunting's combat strength the best. Almost no one of the same cultivation realm was a match for her younger brother. Although Yunting was young, he had fought countless battles over the years. She had once brought Yunting around the divine firmament immortal domain personally. He looked at the mountains and rivers, looked up at the starry skies, comprehended heaven and earth and fought for an entire 20 years against the paragons of the aristocratic families, disciples of sects and royalty without suffering a single defeat. Although Yunting was not old, he was already famous throughout the world. The woman had not expected that Yunting would lose to a grade 9 black immortal in a one-on-one fight. At the thought of Suzimo, Yunting was still indignant and said with an upset expression, "He's someone who ascended from the lower worlds and has an ordinary bloodline. If not for the fact that I expended too much of my essence spirit to dispel the formation, I would have definitely defeated him." The woman's expression turned solemn as she said in a deep voice, "Little brother, you must not underestimate anyone from the lower worlds. You should know that there was once somebody from the lower worlds who was invincible in the divine firmament and caused a huge ruckus." "Thong Kantian?" Yunting asked. The woman nodded. "If he could be conferred the title of king back then, even our father's reputation would not be able to compare to him. Additionally, there's news that Fang Cantian has reappeared. Ah. Yunting was shocked and asked hurriedly. Wasn't Fang Cantian's Dao fruit crippled? He's not dead? The woman said. It's said that Fang Cantian's Dao fruit was shattered and his body was pinned by the execution saber and suppressed for hundreds of thousands of years. However, the moment he broke free, he displayed his might and crushed Absolute Thunder City, killing 10 perfected immortals before leaving. At the mention of Fang Cantian, be it in her words or eyes, the woman revealed a hint of admiration. Even someone as proud and conceited as Yunting was shocked when he heard that, and could only mutter softly. Such methods are truly. After pondering for a moment, the woman continued. Apart from Fang Cantian, there's an immortal king in the green firmament immortal domain who ruled over a territory and ascended from the lower worlds. Yunting said. However, there are too few of them. After so many years, there are only a few of them. The woman said. You should know how cruel the environment is for those of the lower worlds. They don't have any cultivation resources or experts to protect them. They don't even have a place to stay. It's already very difficult for those of the lower worlds to survive, let alone cultivate. Yunting remained silent. He knew that his sister was right. If he was placed in such a cruel environment, he would definitely not have his current accomplishments. Anyone who can ascend from the lower worlds is a monster incarnate. The woman continued. For example, those who have passed the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation might not lose to you in terms of potential and talent. It's just because your backgrounds are different. Pausing for a moment, she said slowly. There's something more important you have to remember. You have many things different from those of the lower worlds. Your background, bloodline, talent, endowment, status, but you have one thing in common. Be it you or them, you only have a single life. If he lost his life, his status, reputation, and fame would vanish into thin air. When Yunting saw the stern expression on the woman's face, he smiled. Sister, I didn't underestimate that person. Not only that, I even admire him a lot. Initially, I wanted to subdue him and take him under my wing. In the end. At that point, Yunting was a little embarrassed and could not continue. The woman smiled gently and shook her head. How can someone like that bow down to others so easily? Right, speaking of which, this person seems to be fated with me. Yunting seemed to have recalled something. Just as he was about to say it, he paused and rolled his eyes, saying mysteriously, Sister, guess? Pondering for a moment, the woman smiled. It's not hard to guess if it is something related to you. Legend has it that the heaven and earth slaying sword arts are in the lower worlds. Since that person is from the lower worlds, it's likely he knows either the heaven or earth slaying sword arts. Indeed, nothing can be hidden from you, sister. Yunting laughed as well. However, you're wrong about one thing, sister. This person knows both the heaven and earth slaying sword arts. The woman glanced at Yunting and asked in a seemingly casual manner, Do you want me to help you snatch the 2 sword arts? How can that do? Yunting said hurriedly. One day, I'll definitely defeat him and retrieve the 2 sword arts personally. The woman nodded internally when she heard that reply. What she said earlier was just a test. If Yunting agreed to it, it would mean that he was completely defeated and would not even dare to fight that person again. But now, Yunting's remark made the woman feel relieved. As long as Yunting was sharp, the setbacks he suffered today would make him even stronger. The woman extended her palm and waved gently in Yunting's direction. Yunting's consciousness suddenly opened up and a shattered silver armor flew out. It was the Eye-Soul inner armor that was shattered by Su Zimo's 3 Essence Spirit secret skills. Sister, the inner armor is already shattered. What else do you need it for? Yunting mumbled. It's good that it's broken. You'll break through to the Earth Immortal realm soon. I'll forge another one for you. The woman said as she received the inner armor. The woman's finger brushed past the inner armor gently. She focused on the few burn marks on the inner armor and said in a deep voice, These are marks of the spirit vanquishing whip. That's right, that person's essence spirit secret skill is a whip filled with lightning. Yunting said hurriedly. The woman was puzzled. This is Feng Santian's ultimate technique. Why would it appear on him? The woman sensed the remnant aura on the shattered inner armor and said, "There's another essence spirit secret skill of the Buddhist monasteries. I can't guess what it is exactly. Describe the situation of that secret skill." Yun Ting described the scene briefly. Great Day Gautama Sutra and Gautama Dharmic Seal. The woman frowned slightly. That person has extremely deep attainments in Buddhism. However, this is a cultivation technique from the lower worlds after all. How can it be so powerful? She had read a lot of books and knew a lot. Therefore, many things could be deduced from the clues left behind by the inner armor. However, at that moment, she could not understand how an essence spirit secret skill from the lower worlds could release such power. The woman shook her head and continued. That person even released the reverse scales secret skill of the dragon race. There's definitely something strange about his essence spirit to be able to release 3 essence spirit secret skills in succession. According to Yun Ting's description, he had a strong physique but ordinary bloodline. The greatest possibility was the barbarian race. However, the essence spirit of the barbarian race was the weakest point and could not be so condensed and pure. Given the woman's experience, she could not guess Su Zimo's background right away. How could there be somebody who cultivated the heaven and earth slaying sword arts, comprehended the spirit vanquishing whip, had extremely high attainments in Buddhism, could release a secret skill of the dragon race and even fight against Yun Ting physically? The strange thing was that such a monster incarnate had an ordinary bloodline. Could it be? The woman's heart skipped a beat as she vaguely thought of a possibility. When Yun Ting saw that the woman was silent, he felt bored and leaned forward, pointing to the book in her hands. "Sister, what are you looking at? Why are you so engrossed?" The woman's thoughts were interrupted by Yun Ting, and she did not continue thinking. She closed the book and revealed the title to Yun Ting with a smile. "It's nothing much. It's just some legends." There were 2 ancient words written on the scroll, Infinite Era. Chapter 2008 Catastrophe. Chapter 2008 Catastrophe. The Emperor's Tomb. The main hall of the Immortal Emperor's Palace. Putting away the Jade Talisman, Su Zimo collected the storage bags of Fang Xian and the Paragons of the 4 immortal sections. It had to be said that there were indeed some good things in the storage bags of these Paragons. However, what truly interested Su Zimo was a beast hide. This was what Su Zimo found in Fang Xian's consciousness while retrieving his storage bag. The fact that it was hidden in a secluded place like the consciousness was definitely important. Su Zimo opened the beast hide and took a look. At the edge were the words Divine Elephant Breathing Technique. After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo guessed that this was a cultivation technique cultivated by Fang Xian. Fang Xian's combat strength was not weak. Even if Su Zimo were to face him, it would take some effort without revealing his green lotus true body. Fang Xian was equivalent to being killed by the combined forces of Su Zimo, Yun Ting and Tang Zi, 3 top black immortals. Although Fang Xian was struck by the time saber and lost 60,000 years of lifespan, he could still receive Yun Ting's heaven-slaying sword chi and his blood chi was still robust. The reason for that was this divine elephant breathing technique. "Let's share their belongings." Su Zimo tidied up the storage bags and came before Tang Zi. Tang Zi glanced at it and said indifferently, "Take that beast hide with you. The rest is mine." Stunned, Su Zimo quickly understood. Tang Zi must have seen that he was interested in the divine elephant breathing technique and wanted to give it up. On the surface, Tang Zi took more things. However, in reality, she was doing Su Zimo a favor. Su Zimo was hesitant. Although he was interested in the divine elephant breathing technique, Fang Xian died in Tang Zi's hands in the end. Logically speaking, this cultivation technique should be given to Tang Zi. "You don't have to think too much," Tang Zi said. "His divine elephant technique conflicts with my immortal whale cultivation technique and can't be cultivated at the same time." The immortal whale was the overlord of the deep sea. The divine elephant was a divine being of the land. There were many conflicts between the two. Thank you very much. Su Zimo cupped his fists and did not decline. When Fang Xian released his bloodline phenomenon, the phantom of the six-tusked divine elephant appeared and was of the same origin as his innate divine power. Su Zimo was also wondering if he could cause some changes to the six-tusked divine strength by cultivating the divine elephant breathing technique. Now was not the time to cultivate. Su Zimo put away the beast hide and gave the rest of the items to Tang Zi. Right then, Tang Zi suddenly asked, "Why do you know about the spirit vanquishing whip? Who imparted it to you? Who exactly are you?" There was no need to hide the fact that he was from Tianhuang mainland from Tang Zi. Just as Su Zimo was about to reply, he frowned and his expression changed. Something was amiss. The surroundings were way too quiet. Initially, the main hall was filled with the sounds of killing and shouting. Unknowingly, those voices had vanished. It was silent outside the main hall as well. The uneasiness in Tang Zi's heart intensified. Su Zimo looked around with a grim expression. The otherworldly soldiers in the hall were still densely packed. However, for some reason, they seemed to be frozen and did not move at all. The strange thing was that the red lights in the eyes of the otherworldly soldiers flickered as though they could extinguish at any moment. Thud! Suddenly, a sound came from outside the main hall, as though something had landed on the stone steps. It was neither loud nor soft. However, it was extremely clear in the silent hall. Su Zimo and Tang Zi did not feel anything unusual when they heard that sound. However, the otherworldly soldiers in the hall shuddered. What happened? Su Zimo sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Tang Zi shook her head gently. Thud! The strange voice sounded once more, and it was even closer to the main hall. The otherworldly soldiers in the hall shuddered once more. Su Zimo released his spirit consciousness, wanting to find another way out of the hall. However, the main hall was sealed and filled with restrictions, as though there was only a single way out. Thud! The strange voice sounded once more, but Su Zimo ignored it and continued surveying his surroundings. Suddenly, he noticed that Tang Zi's expression was strange as she glared at the entrance of the hall in a frightening manner. Su Zimo spun around and looked towards the entrance of the hall. Unknowingly, a figure had appeared there. The person looked like an old man with a pitch-black walking stick in his hands. His black robe reached the ground and was made of an unknown material that looked strange. The old man was smiling at Su Zimo and Tang Zi. His face was filled with wrinkles and his smile was sinister and terrifying. Su Zimo's spirit consciousness scanned the old man countless times, but he could not sense the latter's cultivation realm. However, Tang Zi's expression darkened. Who are you? Su Zimo asked in a deep voice. The black-robed old man did not reply and raised his walking stick before lowering it rapidly. Thud! The strange sound rang. So, the sound earlier on came from the black-robed old man's walking stick. This time round, the black-robed old man suddenly opened his mouth. The moment he opened his mouth, the corners of his mouth split. His head seemed like it was about to split open. His expression changed. Right then, the black-robed old man took a deep breath. Immediately after, the otherworldly soldiers at the front fell to the ground one after another, and the red light in their eyes was sucked into the black-robed old man's mouth. Be it the black immortal otherworldly soldiers or earth immortal otherworldly generals, none of them were spared. It's a ghost immortal, Tang Zi said slowly. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Not long after he entered the Emperor's tomb, Tang Zi mentioned to him about ghost immortals. It could be said that ghost immortals were existences in the Emperor's tomb that must not be provoked. Anyone targeted by ghost immortals would definitely be doomed. The otherworldly soldiers were formed because the souls of experts did not disperse and did not enter reincarnation. They were fused with many grievances and were gradually formed. One could only become a ghost immortal after cultivating sentience. It could be said that these otherworldly soldiers were food for the ghost immortals. Gradually, Su Zimo understood why it was silent outside the hall. That was because the otherworldly soldiers that charged out had already been devoured by the ghost immortal. The formation at the entrance of the main hall was dispelled and countless otherworldly soldiers surged out. For the ghost immortal, it was a feast. Prepare to escape. Be careful. Just as Tang Zi's imagination was running wild, Su Zimo's voice sounded in her mind. What are you doing? Tang Zi was alarmed and asked hurriedly. Su Zimo did not reply. Suddenly, a pair of golden wings appeared behind him, and he released his innate divine power. Turning into a golden streak of light, he sped out of the hall. Trying to flee? The ghost immortal cackled and an evil glint shone in his eyes. In a flash, he blocked Su Zimo at an astonishing speed that was even faster than the latter. Chapter 2009 Desperate Situation. Chapter 2009 Desperate Situation. Arriving before Su Zimo, the black-robed old man tapped his walking stick gently with a strange sound. Su Zimo shuddered and his essence spirit shuddered, as though it was about to leave his body. The creation lotus platform spun slowly and rays of light spewed out from the lotus cave, nourishing the green lotus essence spirit, and allowing Su Zimo to sober up rapidly. The black-robed old man frowned slightly. Initially, he thought that his attack would definitely disperse Su Zimo's soul. Unexpectedly, Su Zimo was only dazed for a moment before returning to normal and continued speeding towards the entrance. Humph! The black-robed old man harumphed coldly with a cold gaze. Leaning forward slightly, he took a deep breath in Su Zimo's direction. Phew! From the black-robed old man's mouth came a whimpering sound that was extremely terrifying, like a child crying. The next moment, Su Zimo's body swayed and his consciousness blurred. His green lotus essence spirit turned hazy and showed signs of collapsing. What was even more frightening was that the green lotus essence spirit was not under Su Zimo's control and floated outside, as though it was drawn in by some power. Om. Ma. And I. Pa. Suddenly, the images of Buddhas appeared in Su Zimo's consciousness, and he chanted ancient Sanskrit. In his consciousness, a golden light shone brightly and reverberated with a vast and dignified power that was deafening. That was the benefit of cultivating the Prajna-Nirvana Sutra. This cultivation technique of the Buddhist monasteries was a taboo mystic classic. It was a supreme dharmic formulation for spirit refinement and possessed unimaginable might. Up till this point of his cultivation, the increase in Su Zimo's combat strength was not obvious. However, it protected his essence spirit countless times. Back then, the might of the Prajna-Nirvana Sutra was evident when it could fuse the dragon phoenix and green lotus essence spirits. But now, the Prajna-Nirvana Sutra was not perfected and there were still sutras from 2 tripod walls that had yet to surface. The power currently revealed by this taboo mystic classic was only the tip of the iceberg. The green lotus essence spirit calmed down after it was enveloped by the golden light and became pure once more. However, the Buddhist light could not purge away the strange suction power in his consciousness. The green lotus essence spirit was still drawn in by that power and wanted to leave its shell. Suddenly, the creation lotus platform shone brightly with a resplendent glow as it soared into the air. The 9 circles of 81 petals closed rapidly and enveloped the green lotus essence spirit, severing the suction force completely. Su Zimo was invigorated and the rock wings behind him flapped. Turning into a golden streak of light, he charged out of the main hall and fled into the distance. The black-robed old man frowned. Initially, he thought that he would definitely be able to suck Su Zimo's soul over with that single breath. Unexpectedly, Su Zimo seemed to be unaffected and escaped after a slight pause, catching him off guard. When he saw that Su Zimo had already escaped far away, the black-robed old man thought for a moment, and did not chase after him. Instead, he turned around and smiled at Tang Zi in the hall. Although one of them escaped, there was another one here. Although the souls of otherworldly soldiers were strong, they could not compare to the freshness of Tang Zi. For the ghost immortal, Tang Zi's soul was the true delicacy. The black-robed old man laughed sinisterly and walked slowly towards Tang Zi. Tang Zi was severely injured after being surrounded by 4 paragons. Although she managed to recover her mobility after recuperating for a while, it was impossible for her to fight the black-robed old man. Even at her peak, she would not be a match for the Ghost Immortal, let alone the fact that she was injured right now. The Ghost Immortals in the Emperor's tomb were tainted by the power of the curse and could not even be touched. How could anybody fight them? Damn thing, what's that stupid smile for? Right then, a sneer sounded from behind the black-robed old man. Turning back, the black-robed old man saw that Su Zimo had returned and was standing outside the main hall, looking at him with a mocking and provocative expression. The black-robed old man was enraged. At the same time, Tang Zi understood Su Zimo's intentions. The reason why Su Zimo left first was not because he wanted to abandon her here. Su Zimo wanted to lure the black-robed old man away. When Su Zimo saw that the black-robed old man did not chase after him, he deliberately provoked the latter by returning. Although the black-robed old man was sentient, he was far less mature than those experienced experts. He was enraged by Su Zimo's provocation. Ignorant ant, do you really think that I can't kill you? The black-robed old man glared at Su Zimo with rage in his eyes. Countless menacing faces appeared on his black robes and roared at Su Zimo. Suddenly, Tang Zi felt disgusted. If she was killed by humans and her soul was dispersed, at least she would die a clean death. However, if she was devoured by the black-robed old man, her face would appear on this Ghost Immortal and she would become one of those menacing faces. Abandoning Tang Zi, the black-robed old man slammed his walking stick heavily on the ground and soared into the air, charging towards Su Zimo. Without hesitation, Su Zimo turned and fled. His current strength was not enough to fight against this Ghost Immortal. Ooh! Ooh! The menacing faces of the black-robed old man fell off one after another, turning into menacing ghost faces that chased after Su Zimo like vengeful ghosts. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo and the black-robed old man charged out of the Immortal Emperor's palace. You! Tang Zi was anxious and swallowed another handful of elixirs. Before the medicinal effects could dissipate, she rushed out. However, by the time she rushed out of the Immortal Emperor's palace, Su Zimo and the black-robed old man were long gone. Tang Zi clenched her fists with a conflicted expression. She knew in her heart that Su Zimo could have escaped initially. He returned to lure the black-robed old man away because he wanted to save her. She also knew that Su Zimo was most likely doomed. There were no living beings in the Emperor's tomb that could escape the pursuit of the Ghost Immortal. Tang Zi took a deep breath and judged the direction before giving chase. Su Zimo and the black-robed old man moved at an extremely fast speed one after another. However, as time passed by, Su Zimo could not hold on any longer. After all, he had expended too much stamina in the battle against Yun Ting and the 4 paragons. Even with the help of the extreme speed divine power, his speed gradually slowed down. However, the many ghost faces behind him closed in continuously and howled, letting out shuddering wails. I told you, you can't escape! Before long, the black-robed old man's voice sounded in Su Zimo's ears. It was as though someone had blown a cold breath into his ears. Instantly, Su Zimo's hairs stood on end. Without hesitation, he summoned the Hell Suppression Tripod and shielded it behind him. However, a menacing ghost face penetrated the Hell Suppression Tripod and struck his back heavily. Although the Hell Suppression Tripod was strong and indestructible, it could not defend against essence spirits and souls. However, the Ghost Immortal was condensed with souls from head to toe. The ghost faces he released also possessed the power of souls. Bang! Su Zimo shuddered and spat out a mouthful of black blood. An extremely terrifying power burst forth from the ghost face and surged into Su Zimo's body, engulfing his limbs, bones and organs. The coldness was chilling to the bones and Su Zimo could not help but shudder. His face was pale and his lips were purplish as he staggered forward. Even walking became difficult, let alone movement techniques. I'm probably going to die in the Emperor's tomb today. Su Zimo's eyelids were heavy and his vision turned blurry as he sighed internally. He had already used up all his trump cards and was on the brink of death. Now, even the hell suppression tripod could not save him. Chapter 2010 Soul Lantern. Chapter 2010 Soul Lantern. Hee hee. The black-robed old man's laughter sounded once more. Stop struggling. Even if I don't attack, you're dead. The power of the curse of the Emperor's tomb has already seeped into your organs and bones after being struck by my ghost face. You're already a dead man, hee hee hee. When the black-robed old man realized that Su Zimo was already a bird in a cage, he was no longer anxious and merely followed closely behind Su Zimo, smelling the scent of this fresh soul with an intoxicated expression. Su Zimo bit his tongue gently and tried his best to stay awake. Under normal circumstances, their cultivation realms were very low and the power of the curse would not seep into their bodies after entering the Emperor's tomb. That was the reason why they had the chance to purge it and survive. Once the curse of the Emperor's tomb seeped into his flesh, he would be in danger. Let alone seep into his organs and bones. However, the black-robed old man was only half right. The power of the curse of the Emperor's tomb had indeed seeped into Su Zimo's flesh and tainted his organs and bones. But as though it was blocked by some power, it could not continue deeper. Su Zimo did not give up. Gritting his teeth, he continued forward. However, the black-robed old man became impatient. Humph, let's see how much longer you can last. The black-robed old man sneered and his black robes swayed. Hundreds of ghost faces fell and flew towards Su Zimo, drowning him instantly. The ghost faces opened their mouths and bared their sharp teeth, biting Su Zimo. With every bite, the green lotus essence spirit dimmed. Without waiting for the black-robed old man to attack, those hungry ghost-like faces alone could devour Su Zimo cleanly. Right then, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he recalled something. He took out a jade talisman from his storage bag and held it in his palm. The jade talisman emitted a glow that enveloped him. Ah! 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 The ghost faces that were initially gnawing on Su Zimo released their bites one after another, as though they were in immense pain. They let out tragic cries and turned to flee. In the blink of an eye, the ghost faces flew out of the radius of the jade talisman's light. Green smoke billowed from the ghost faces and their auras were clearly much weaker. Su Zimo obtained a rare breather and could not help but perk up, looking at the black-robed old man with widened eyes. The black-robed old man's expression darkened. When he saw the light emitted by the jade talisman, he was clearly wary. However, he did not stop and said slowly, "Do you think that this thing can stop me?" The black-robed old man approached continuously and arrived at the edge of the jade talisman's radius. He paused for a moment before striding in. Sizzle! The light of the jade talisman enveloped the black-robed old man and let out a series of strange sounds. However, it was clear that his foundation was not injured. As the two of them approached, Su Zimo suddenly raised his hand and threw the jade talisman in his hands towards the black-robed old man. Humph! The black-robed old man extended his walking stick and flicked it gently, knocking the jade talisman to the ground. He did not stop and continued walking towards Su Zimo, getting closer and closer. Seemingly flustered, Su Zimo took out a pile of dermic treasures from his storage bag and threw them towards the black-robed old man. The black-robed old man had a mocking expression as he waved his walking stick casually, and knocked down the dermic treasures one after another. He did not notice that among the dermic treasures, there was one that Su Zimo did not touch with his hands. Instead, it was wrapped with robes and threw out among the many dermic treasures. It was a dim bronze lantern that looked ordinary. The black-robed old man waved his walking stick casually and struck the bronze lantern. However, he suddenly shuddered and his expression changed. His eyes widened with fear and his body trembled uncontrollably with increasingly stronger convulsions. To think that this lantern is actually in your hands. The black-robed old man's voice trembled. He waved the walking stick in his hands vigorously, as though he wanted to throw the bronze lantern off. However, the bronze lantern seemed to be stuck to the walking stick and could not be flung down. What Su Zimo thought of earlier on was not the jade talisman, but this bronze lantern. Previously, he merely touched the bronze lantern and his essence spirit was almost absorbed. If not for the Buddhas that appeared and chanted the Prajna-Nirvana Sutra, he would have been killed by a bronze lantern. At the bottom of the bronze lantern was the word soul. Therefore, Su Zimo guessed that the bronze lantern might have something to do with the soul. That was not the only strange thing about the bronze lantern. Although it had been in the Emperor's tomb for countless years, it was not tainted by the curse of the Emperor's tomb at all. In fact, even the Hell Suppression tripod could not devour it. Right now, the bronze lantern had indeed done something extraordinary. Ah! Suddenly, the black-robed old man shrieked with a ruthless glint in his eyes. He extended his left hand and severed his right arm decisively. His right arm and walking stick fell at the same time. Although the black-robed old man lost an arm and suffered severe injuries, he was at least free from the threat of the bronze lantern. Su Zimo had been paying attention to the situation the entire time, and could not help but feel shocked when he saw that. If the black-robed old man were to break free, he might be the one to die. At that moment, it was already too late for him to pick up the bronze lantern. Suddenly, Su Zimo's eyes flickered as he noticed something unusual. There was a faint glow at the bottom of the bronze lantern. Unknowingly, a thin layer of oil had accumulated in the lantern. A thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. Without hesitation, he channeled his extremely weak essence spirit and released a feeble spirit consciousness flame. Or rather, it could only be considered as a spark. However, that spark caused a change when it landed in the lantern. Phew! With a whoosh, a small flame ignited in the lantern and enveloped the black-robed old man with a golden glow. Ah! Before the black-robed old man could escape, he encountered such an unforeseen event and could not help but cry out tragically. The fear in his eyes had reached its limits as he shrieked repeatedly. "Soul Lantern! You actually ignited the Soul Lantern!" Ah! The golden flame of the bronze lantern did not burn the black-robed old man directly. However, when the golden light around the flame landed on the black-robed old man, golden flames were ignited from head to toe from the inside out, and could not be extinguished. In the blink of an eye, the golden flames devoured the black-robed old man completely. The black-robed old man's tragic cries deteriorated rapidly as well. In just a few breaths, the black-robed old man had already vanished completely, and his essence spirit was destroyed by the golden flames. Su Zimo looked at everything in a daze, dumbfounded. Earlier on, he merely released a spirit consciousness flame in a flash of inspiration. To think that it would create such a terrifying scene. "Is this a soul lantern?" Su Zimo murmured softly. "It's impressive indeed. Souls are completely helpless against the envelopment of this lantern." That power did not come from the soul lantern's flame. If the black-robed man, a powerful ghost immortal, was burned into ashes by the light released by the flame, how terrifying was the power of the actual flame? You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.